that we have Commissioner Gordon will sit for Brayman until he arrives. Yeah.
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We would need both alternates at present.
Yep.
So Mr. DiGiacomo for Mr. Levy, who I do not expect, in Commissioner Gordon for Mr. Brayman.
All right. I'll say that when we start. You want to start the recording?
Yes, we're started.
Okay, thanks. So I'll call the meeting to order. This is the Town Plan and Zoning Commission meeting for the town of Fairfield, September 14, 2021. Before we get started, we have Commissioner Levy absent tonight. Alternate member Commissioner DiGiacomo will sit in his place for the entire meeting. And we have Commissioner Brayman, who's running a little late. And until he arrives, we have alternate Commissioner Gordon, who will sit in his place. Okay. So the first order of business is bills and communications. We have the meeting minutes from August 24th, 2021. Can I have a motion on that?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve, Commissioner Francis. Second by Commissioner Noonan. Thanks. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Commissioner Francis, did you see any errors or corrections?
They seemed fine, and I will just double check. We don't ever state why someone voted against a motion, right? If a matter is appealed, the judge has to go through the hearing testimony.
That is correct. And that would really only become relevant if somebody needed to look into the record to find something, right? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I had Commissioner Brayman emailed me late this afternoon with one comment, so in his absence, I will share that with the commission. On the Park Avenue matter with the commission's collective statement, he suggested inserting one additional word in the last paragraph. If you don't have it before you, I'll read it. The sentence is, the commission finds that the development as proposed would cause irreparable harm to the historic resources of the Merritt Parkway. In this outweighs the need for affordable housing. It's Mr. Brayman's suggestion to insert the word clearly before the word outweighs. So it would read, would cause irreparable harm to the historic resources of the Merritt Parkway. In this clearly outweighs the need for affordable housing. So it's was his suggestion to insert the word clearly in front of the word outweighs as a one-word supplement to this collective statement.
Jim, thank you. This is Lenny Brayman. I'm having trouble connecting on WebEx. I'm joining by phone.
Great. Thanks. Were you in? Did you just join?
Yeah, I just joined this moment, Mr. Chairman. Right. I'm trying to get on WebEx, but I'll stay on the phone for as long as I need to.
Yeah. Well, for the moment, your timing is very good because we're considering the minutes from last meeting, and we understand that you had a comment with respect to Park Avenue and inserting the word, we're proposing to insert the word clearly,
yes.
Modifying outweighs, so clearly outweighs the need for affordable housing. I mean, I certainly think the record supports that. I think for something like this, the minutes, I think, are ancillary to a notice of decision, right? Mr.
Well, a letter went out to the applicant as the motion or as the collective statement was originally drafted, but it's not unprecedented to, once the commission reviews the final minutes,
what's that?
To re-articulate a decision. So we can submit, if it is the commission's intention to add that word, we could send a revised decision letter re-articulating this decision as reviewed by you upon review of the minutes.
Gotcha. Very good. Then, Commissioner Francis, it's your motion. Would you like to amend that to include the inserted word?
I think it's an excellent suggestion, and we often use the word clearly. Commissioner Brayman's right. So right. It's great.
Very good. Very good. Commissioner Noonan? Second. Very good. All right. Okay, any other questions or comments? Commissioner Corcoran.
So in the Park Avenue decision, we don't need to state what the conditions of those were. I think I just heard you say they would be in the notice of decision.
Well, they are in the notice, but they're also in the minutes. So if you it starts on page 1, which states that the motion that was
Yeah, I
made.
see it. Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Okay, all right, no problem. Anyone else? Okay, so the motion is to approve the minutes with the insertion of the word clearly before outweighs and Park Avenue at the bottom of page 2. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioner Bremen, I heard that. See all hands. Right, any opposed? And any, that's right. So the minutes as modified are approved unanimously. Next item is Gould Manor Park, referral for park improvements in conjunction with the remediation project.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Jim Went for the record. As you folks are likely aware, Gould Manor Park is undergoing remediation work. In addition to that remediation work, upgrades and replacement of existing park facilities are proposed. You have before you in your packet a referral pursuant to Section 8-24 of the Connecticut General Statutes, specifically regarding 2 new features, a pickleball court and a basketball court. These 2 courts are proposed immediately adjacent to an existing tennis court, which is also being replaced. There's no court lighting existing, nor is any proposed. You should know that the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and the RTM all voted unanimously to approve funding for the project. The statute specifically allows that vote for final action on funding to take place prior to the Commission's action. That was done in this case because there was a need to expedite the remediation work. The final drawing of the pickleball court we did not yet have, but we now do. So the funding has all been approved by the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and the RTM. This has also been fairly well reported and advertised through the town's First Selectwoman's newsletter that comes out. Your predecessor commissioner, our current Director of Parks and Recreation, Anthony Calabrese, is here this evening if you have any questions regarding this matter, but that is all I have at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks. We can speak with Mr. Calabrese, even though it's in built-in communication.
Yes, as a town staff member, he can appear before you.
Gotcha. Okay, very good. All right, so we'll call for a motion on this so we can get started, right? And then we can ask for any questions and such. And I think what this is for a either a positive or negative recommendation to the Board of Selectmen.
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Corcoran, you had your hand up. Yep, Commissioner Corcoran, you want to? I don't know if you want to articulate.
I move to approve.
Okay, favorable recommendation to the Board of Selectmen.
Yes.
Very good. Second by Commissioner Noonan. That's a motion by Commissioner Corcoran, second by Commissioner Noonan. Thanks. So that's great. Mr. Calabrese, invite any comments or, you know, if any. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, you guys all received the letter that details the work that's proposed, and happy to be back here. If you guys have any questions, happy to answer them.
Very good. Thanks. So does anyone have any questions for either staff or Mr. Calabrese? This seems pretty straightforward. All right. All those in favor, either say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. I heard that, Mr. Bremen. Anyone else? Very good. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Very good. So the motion carries unanimously. Mr. Calabrese, nice to see you.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
Next is 600 Whittens Lane, a request of attorney William Fitzpatrick for modification of a subdivision open space fee.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Jim Went again for the record. This property was the subject of a two-lot subdivision in December of 2013. And at the time the commission approved that subdivision, as part of the decision, the commission imposed a fee in lieu of open space in the amount of $58,220. The applicant is seeking to have this commission reconsider that on the basis of the fact that this subdivision really created one additional building lot. There's an existing old 1800s farmhouse at 600 Hoydens Lane, and the new lot that was created is a single lot, arguing that it should only be a 5% fee rather than a 10% fee, and therefore the fee should be asking for your consideration to reduce the fee to $29,110. In the alternative, the applicant is suggesting an adjustment might be considered to reflect the actual contracted prices for the house and new lot, which reflect a lower value than was originally calculated in the 2013 subdivision approval. So for those reasons, the applicant is asking your consideration to reduce the open space fee. And I'll leave it there and obviously answer any questions that the commission may have.
Okay. Thanks very much. We should certainly talk about this. This is not a usual request that we see, but let's get started with a motion. Commissioner Noonan.
For discussion purposes, I would move to adopt the alternative that the applicant recommended for seeking.
The reduction based upon the alternative, but let's articulate that specifically.
Sure.
A reduction in the open space fee from X to what?
58 reduction from the 58,220 to the 41,250.
Okay. Anybody second that motion? Okay. Commissioner Corcoran. Do you second the motion, or do you want to be heard? Second the motion.
Second the motion.
Okay, thank you. So we have now a motion on the table. So Commissioner Noonan, your motion, you want to start us off?
Thank you, Mr. Wendt. If you please, just a little more history, if you don't mind. Back when we had this application in 2013, it was I assume a single family house that was on a piece of property, and they were seeking to subdivide into two lots.
Yes, in 2013, it's a 4+ acre site in a 2-acre zone on Hoydens Lane with an existing house, and the subdivision created a new smaller lot for that existing house and one additional building lot.
Right.
So what I don't understand, what is it that, now he's saying there's only, the subdivision created one building lot. Wasn't that what was expected?
Yes, the letter reflects a single precedent that the commission considered a number of years ago, when there was one instance where the commission, it was during the time of the subdivision, while the subdivision was pending. It wasn't a later decision after the commission rendered their decision on the subdivision. It was as part of the subdivision request, the referenced application where a 5% fee was imposed rather than a 10% fee was based on an argument that the applicant made at that time that the family had owned the property into the early 60s, and that particular subdivision application was shortly after the adoption of of this fee in lieu of open space, and argued that that particular applicant could have made the application many years ago and not been subject to the fee. Therefore, they thought it was fair to split it to a 5% fee for the new lot and not impose a fee on the existing house lot. Yeah. This applicant is asking for that same consideration. The difference being, this is 8 years removed from the time of the original application, whereas in the example cited, it was all part of the discussion during the application as it was pending. The alternative, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, the alternative that I believe you are suggesting is more of an adjustment that the applicant is saying, hey, that here's our contract sales prices. It's adds up to a lesser number than what the fee was based on originally. So their argument is it should be fair to adjust the price accordingly.
What I'm trying to understand is there anything different than what they expected to happen back in December 2013? That's where I'm getting confused.
So let's discuss that as a commission, and not really be, talking about the precedent, right? Because in my opinion, the precedent is not persuasive, and there needs to be some authority here for what's being requested. Commissioner Noonan, in response to your question, exactly what they intended to happen and anticipated to happen happened.
Yeah.
We have specific regulations that provide for an objective determination of what the fees are and so forth. I looked at this and tried to understand why we wouldn't be using the assessor's value as determined, today. And if we look at contract price, okay, fine. Is it an arm's length contract? What did they do? He said that they had it on the market for some time, but did they advertise it? Is this, a reduction based just to try to, who knows? I don't want to get into all of those considerations. The reason that we assess the fee based on a formula based upon the town assessor's value is so that we don't have to get into those kinds of questions. And I don't want to, and I think it's a really dangerous thing for us to be talking about. So I looked at, well, if we want to make an adjustment, what does the assessor's office have to say about the value of the property today versus 8 years ago when we granted it? If you look at that calculation, it's actually gone up. Exactly. And so I fail to really understand why if we were to be doing anything on an adjustment, why we would be moving downward and not up. Based on the arguments presented.
You saw where I went. I was concerned that something had happened to make it different. The circumstances were different. Because my initial thought was, are they just asking for what they asked for way back when, or did something actually happen that I wasn't aware of that changes whatever was intended? But that's why I went with the higher figure, because I wanted to get this out there, because I wanted to understand what these changing circumstances were that prompted this request. And other than simply asking for a reduction based upon the passage of time, I don't see the basis having been expressed in at least now I understand the comments in the letter better. I just was thinking that there was something else, because why else?
I see you, Commissioner Braun. Yeah. Commissioner Braun.
Two questions. I'm just looking at a Google aerial. It looks like unless it's wrong, and sometimes they are wrong, it looks like there's a structure on, is 562 the new one or the old one? It looks like there's a structure on both parcels, but of course Google could be wrong. It's wrong before.
It's the existing house is 600. The new lot, the unbuilt upon lot, is 520.
It's 520? I thought it was 562. Okay.
Commissioner Braun, the addresses and the arguments are contained in the submission, not in Google Maps.
I thought I saw 562. I could be okay. My second question is for Jim. When we take the fee in lieu of the open space dedication, that's based on a lot. I wasn't here in 2013. This is contiguous to a whole lot of open space, it looks like. So I guess we took the fee in lieu. I don't know why, but I would have liked to see the land instead. But how much, what happens to the money and how much do we have now in that account and what do we do with it? Have we used it to buy open space?
Yes.
Is that what we use it for?
That is what the money gets used for. And
So
Commissioner Braun, if I remember correctly, the applicant here did not want the dedication of open space. The applicant calculated the fee.
And
Yeah,
we accepted that instead, right? Yeah.
Property is adjacent to a sizable Aquarion watershed property, which isn't necessarily open space. The town did later acquire some nearby open space, but there wasn't enough area to provide a 10% open space and still have 2 lots. So that's why the fee was implemented.
Okay. And how much do we have in that account? Do we use it? Have we used it to buy open space? I mean.
Yes, I don't know what the today balance in that open space account is because it goes into an account where other funds are also managed through the Conservation Commission. It's been over since the institution of the open space fee. I think it's close to $1 million that we've acquired, but we've spent quite a bit of that on acquiring other properties. So the answer is yes, money goes out expressly for the acquisition of properties outside of the boundaries of any particular subdivision.
The regulations require that any fees in lieu of open space are used expressly for that purpose.
Yeah, I was just wondering okay. So based on the sort of public policy, it just seems like we shouldn't be necessarily feeling obligated to make the homeowners market value change or change in plans a justification to reduce the open space at all. It doesn't seem like that would support the public policy behind the regulation.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Francis? There you go.
My concern is revisiting decisions that we have made. I think it sets a very wrong precedent.
Okay. Commissioner Noonan?
Yeah, I mean, based on what we've talked about and what I've learned, I would like to withdraw my motion at this point. I have another motion to make, but at least withdraw it first.
So that requires the agreement of, I believe that was Commissioner Corcoran. Did you second it? Yeah, Commissioner Corcoran, do you agree to withdraw the motion?
Yes.
Okay, so motion's been withdrawn. That means we need another one. Commissioner Noonan?
I'd move to deny.
Okay, motion to deny by Commissioner Noonan. Second by Commissioner Braun, yes? Thumbs up? Yes, I see that. Okay, second by Commissioner Braun. All right. Other commissioners? Commissioner Noonan, any other comments?
Based on what we've said.
I see you, Commissioner Brayman. Hold on. Go ahead.
Based on what we've said, no change in circumstances, changing a prior decision, everything else that's been said, I don't see a reason to support the application.
Okay, Commissioner Brayman. Welcome, by the way.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah. I should actually, for the record, I should say, nice to see you. You've been here, but on audio only, and so you're now by video.
Very good, and good to see you too, Mr. Chairman. I think that as I was looking at the subdivision regulations, I was struggling to find the authority for departing from what we had decided previously in 2013. I also think it would be an invitation to other applicants to routinely ask us to depart from what had been decided and agreed upon previously.
Very good.
Not to mention, I think they're opening a Pandora's box, as you said. Really, values have gone up.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, the notion it was a little odd. I don't have to beat a dead horse here, but
no.
The values in the assessor's offices have gone up, not down. That's the measure of the fee determination, and we should not get ourselves involved in determining whether market rates are fair and reasonable and contracts and all that kind of stuff. That's my logic, in addition to the others that have been expressed year. Anyone else have any other questions or comments? Okay. The motion on the table is to deny. All in favor say aye or raise your hand. Aye. Then I see all hands. Any opposed? Any abstentions? No. Very good. So that motion to deny carries unanimously. Thank you.
Yes.
Next item is new applications to recommend a public hearing. The first is 1073 North Benson Road, special exception application of Fairfield University pertaining to new townhouses for 84 additional beds in a double A zone.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I don't have much to add. These are townhouses up in the upper North Benson part of the campus, not the newer townhouses that are on the Round Hill Road side of campus. The university is looking to add 84 additional beds with a couple of new buildings to fit in with that complex. It does require a public hearing as it is a special exception application.
Very good, thanks. Motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Motion to send to public hearing, Commissioner Francis, second by Commissioner Newman. Thank you. Anyone else have any other questions, comments? Very good. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Aye. I see all hands. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Move to public hearing unanimously. Next is 2-6 Beacon Square, zoning compliance application of Beacon Square Properties LLC pertaining to a 26-unit residential development pursuant to Section 830G of the Connecticut General Statutes.
Again, I don't have anything to add beside that description, Mr. Chairman, other than, technically a hearing is discretionary on your part. However, past practice has been to simply send such applications to public hearing.
Yes, very good. Have a motion on that? Commissioner Braun moved to send to public hearing, second by Commissioner Noonan. Thank you. Anybody have any questions on this? Very good. All in favor?
Is that on Beacon View Street?
Sorry, Commissioner Francis.
Is that on Beacon View Street?
It is not. Beacon Square is a little, it's a square-shaped cul-de-sac off of Pine Tree Lane. It's around the corner from Beacon View, which is the where the commission had previously denied an application. It was that denial which was recently upheld. Different street, same neighborhood.
Yeah, it is interesting because it's square. Is it a cul-de-sac?
Oh, that's a good question. It's an odd. It's a fairly uniquely shaped right of way, and you'll see when it comes. But yeah, it is.
It's interesting because the regulations do speak of a cul-de-sac in radius and such, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like as a circle.
It's a unique street geometry.
Mm-hmm. So, all right. Well, we'll learn more about that in due course. Anyone else? Okay. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Aye. I see. Mr. DiGiacomo? Yes, very good. All of us are approving. I'll just call it any opposed, any abstentions. Move to public hearing unanimously. All right, next is whole business. 73 Thorpe Street, special permit application of Bet to Leotti Green pertaining to the construction of a two-family dwelling in the Center Design District.
Just nothing to do with this application, but just for informational, Mr. Chairman, if you're not looking directly at your screen, your sound is a little bit muffled.
Got it. So my microphone doesn't catch me. So 73 Thorpe Street, special permit application of Bet Gigliotti Green pertaining to the construction of a two-family dwelling in the Center Design District.
Much clearer, thank you.
Thanks.
Just this application seeks the approval for a two-family dwelling. The Zoning Board of Appeals granted a variance for 100% residential occupancy and ground floor residential occupancy for this proposal, largely based in support from the neighbors who felt that it was a better fit for their neighborhood, which it's mixed. It's a lot of residential, some commercial closer to the post road, some commercial farther in. There was a 3-unit proposal that was denied by the Zoning Board of Appeals. They came back with a 2-unit proposal that was approved. Other than the issues that were addressed by the ZBA, the approval is otherwise in compliance with the Center Design Business District regulations.
Okay, very good.
Just one other housekeeping item, Mr. Chairman. This was heard at the last meeting, and I don't believe Mr. DiGiacomo was present. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at the video or not, but if not, then Commissioner Gordon was present if she's still here.
You're right. I was not at the meeting, but I did watch the video. So
Okay,
Good, good.
very good. So that says, thank you.
Just in
Thanks,
case
Tom.
I am here.
All right,
Good.
thanks.
Thanks. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Wen, for confirming all of that. All right, so 73 Thorpe Street, special permit application. Can I have a motion on this? Commissioner Braun, move to approve.
Actually, I was going to recuse myself from this
Recuse.
vote.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Braun is recused, and Commissioner Gordon, you are on. You disappeared though. There you are. So you're back. Very good. Anyone else? Commissioner Noonan?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Noonan. Do I have a second? Commissioner Brayman, second. Very good. Thank you. Commissioner Noonan, any comments?
Considering the neighbors' support and the variances that make it comply with the area, I feel that it meets the special permit standards. So I would move to approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Brayman?
I agree with Commissioner Noonan's comments, and I have nothing further.
Very good. Anyone else? Okay, yeah, I agree. You know, the application otherwise complies with our regulations and really meets all of the considerations under the special permit. You know, there is this is now being done with the support of the neighborhood and the you know, and the community. So there's no reason why we should deny this application. Okay, anyone else? The motion on the table is to approve. All in favor say aye or raise your hand. Aye. Good. I see all hands. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Nope. So the motion to approve carries unanimously. We have one recusal, Commissioner Braun, who was replaced by Commissioner Gordon. Very good. Thank you. Commissioner Braun, you're back on. Actually, everybody's back on because it's now our public hearing. So before we go to public hearing, for members of the public that have come for this part of our meeting, we will have the applicant in each one. We have two on tonight. The first is going to be the 888 Oldfield Road, and the second is 801 Post Road. The applicant will first present their application. Then we'll go to a public comment period, and then the applicant will have a reply, a rebuttal, and the final word on the application, and then we'll close the public hearing on the first item, and then we'll go to the second item. If you would like to sign up to speak during the public comment portion on either, you can sign up in the chat. We'll call you in the order that you sign up. Otherwise, I'll make a call for public comments at the appropriate time. So even if you don't sign up, you can still speak. With that, I'll call the first item, 898 Oldfield Road, zoning compliance and coastal site plan application of 888 Oldfield LLC, pertaining to a 13-unit residential development pursuant to Section 830G of the Connecticut General Statutes, now revised to a 10-unit plan in the Residence B zone.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Everybody hear me okay, I hope? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good evening. Good to see you all. For the record, my name is John Fallon. I represent the applicant on this proposal, and the proposal is to construct pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 8-30B, a 10-unit multifamily residential development, which will consist of 10 two-bedroom units. The history here is evolution, a little evolving. We originally worked on a conceptual plan for this site for 17 units. After numerous meetings with town officials and others, we reduced that to 13 units. And that was the application that was actually presented or filed with you originally. After consideration and discussion with our neighbors, and I do want to thank the neighbors, they're a large group. They're represented by Attorney Green, who I believe is in the meeting and will be speaking at some point tonight. But we very much appreciate their constructive efforts. And as part of that, as I think I indicated when we continued the hearing, we agreed to reduce the proposal further from 13 units to 10 units. And that is what is before you this evening. And so there has been a significant evolution here with regard to the development of this project from 17 to 10 units. As I said, it will consist of two-bedroom units with townhouses they are, with garages. We have 10 parking spaces provided in the garages, and there'll be 11 surface spaces that are provided, so a total of 21 spaces. What we were able to do in the revised plan, clearly we've reduced the density to 10 units, but that allowed us to do some other things as well. It allowed us to move the structures back further from the street line, so that the revised plan you have here now shows basically that what we have is a relocation that basically is very substantially the same as the residences on either side of us. The other thing that was part of our agreement that we agreed to was an enhancement to the landscaping plan, especially along the street line. Mr. Green and I have had further conversations with regard to the landscaping. The revised plan that you have does show additional landscaping in that frontage area. But I want the record to reflect that we, in conversations today, and the developer, Mr. Coco, who is here in the meeting as well, we've agreed to provide additional screening, which will consist of a screening buffer consisting of 9 to 10 feet evergreens or similar, depending on availability, spaced 5 feet apart, as is recommended, which shall run along the southerly portion of the property and parallel with Oldfield Road, continuing on both sides of the development access road. I will get Mr. Wendt a copy of exactly that, although it is part of the record. But that certainly should be, as we hope you will approve this proposal, a condition of approval, further enhancement to the landscaping plan as we've discussed.
When you say it's in the record, you mean what you just read, or is
what I just said? But so it's easier for Mr. Wendt and the commission. I'll reduce that to writing and send it to Mr. Wendt.
Yeah.
Okay. And that would be a condition. There is enhanced landscaping in the revised plan, but after discussions with Mr. Green today, we've agreed to further enhance it along the lines I just discussed.
Yeah.
Now, as I said, the proposal is submitted pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 8-30G. This commission, probably more than any I appear before, is well-versed, well familiar with the standards of Connecticut General Statutes 8-30G. I have submitted to your record, again through Mr. Wendt today, a little summary of case law that deals with the standards for 8-30G. I can certainly expand upon that, but I don't want to insult the commission. I know the commission knows the standards under which these applications are reviewed. I'm happy to answer any questions about that, but obviously it is an application made pursuant to 8-30G, so the standards as submitted in the written material I submitted would apply. We did submit, in accordance with the statute, an affordability plan. That's at pages 3 through 21 of my application binder. That was, in fact, modified to reflect the reduction in units from 13 to 10, and I submitted that last week. The 10 units will comply with the 8-30G requirements in that 3 of the units, 30%, will be set aside as affordable for a period of 40 years. In this case, 2 of the units will be reserved and covenanted for persons earning less than 60% of the statewide median income, and 1 unit will be reserved for persons earning less than 80% of the statewide median income. It's based upon our experience and with other similar proposals in Fairfield and in the area. It's anticipated that these units, both the affordable and the market rate units, will be primarily occupied by persons over 50 years old or younger people, all people who want to stay or be in Fairfield for all the reasons that we all love this town. It also provides an opportunity for additional workforce housing involving our teachers, our police, and our fire department. Our presentation tonight is going to include a review of the site plan and the architectural plans. We'll endeavor to be concise but thorough in that presentation. Suffice it to say that the homes are going to vary in size between 1,230 and 1,438 square feet. Each unit is also going to include, as I said, a garage with some utility level space totaling about 600 square feet. We have a very modest lighting plan, but what lighting we do have will be shielded LED lighting and comply with your regulations. With us tonight is Michael Galanti, who did prepare a traffic report, which we submitted some time ago. That has been updated by letter, again, to reflect the reduction in units from 13 to 10. So our presenters tonight will be Mr. Jeffrey Gordon of Codis Bodie and Associates. Jeff will review with you and overview the existing conditions on our proposed site plan. Then we'll have our architect, Greg Grew of Milton Gregory Grew Architects. He'll give you a brief overview of our exterior elevations and interior floor plans. And then lastly, as I said, Mr. Galanti will briefly highlight for you his traffic analysis based upon both the original 13 application, but most importantly, the 10 unit reduction that is what we asked you to approve. So with that, I know we have Mr. Gordon on the line. So Mr. Gordon, I'll let you take over, and I know you've worked out some screen sharing with Ms. Harrigan. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Again, my name is Jeff Gordon. I'm a site planner, landscape architect, president of Codis Bodie and Associates.
I'm sorry, sir, Mr. Gordon, your microphone is not coming through, your voice.
How's that? Any better?
It's a little better. I think you might have been a little bit far, but can you?
Any better now?
Modestly, yes. How are we doing on the recording? Is it okay, Mr. Wen?
Get as close, Jeff, as you can, okay?
Is that any better?
I mean,
You just need to speak up and be as close as you can. If we're going to screen share, we don't have to worry about what the video is looking like.
yeah, the video. I don't care about the video. I care about the audio. It's just, it's not, you know, it's pretty light. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Let me screen share just this first. I will bring up one, and then I'll ask Ms. Harrigan to bring up the other plans. What we have here, if you can see, this is the Ockman survey of the existing conditions.
Not seeing a screen share. Apologies for interrupting, but I don't. Is it me? Does anyone else see a screen share?
No, we don't have a screen share yet. Here it comes. Here it comes.
Here it comes.
There we go.
All right. Sorry about that. Not the platform I'm used to. I'm working on it. Okay, so the Ockman survey shows two parcels, one 0.71 acres and the other is 0.14 acres. So combined, we have 0.85 with a high point to the center of the property and to the north, draining down to the town of Fairfield, the tidal wetland area, and towards the south, out towards Oldfield Road. Again, the houses and the garage structures will be demolished. And we can see that the existing house only about 15 feet off of Oldfield.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. I can't. Your audio is just, and forgive me, but you're speaking clearly and but you're speaking very quickly, and just with the quality of the audio is just making it really challenging to hear what you're saying.
Mr. Chairman, maybe Mr. Gordon can call in by phone, and we can dispense with the need for video, and he can just narrate.
Let me get a dial in.
Yeah, I mean, and forgive me, Attorney Fallon, I want the record to be clear. We should all be able to not strain.
Can someone give me the dial-in number quickly?
Or Mr. Went?
Yeah, the dial-in number 1-510-338-9438. And there will be an access code that I'll ask you for.
Uh, 9438 at the end?
9438. 510-338-9438.
Okay. And what's the access code?
126-944-3035.
Okay, am I in? Okay,
I don't see a new call-in user.
How's that?
Much better.
Okay, now you need to mute your video line.
Okay,
So you need to
Okay,
go
is that
to
better?
mute your computer, and you need to turn down your computer audio.
Okay, how are we doing now?
Great.
That is a world of difference. Thank you very much, and apologies for the inconvenience.
Okay, not a problem. Okay, so again, the property has a high point in the center of the property, then it slopes down to the tidal wetlands to the north, and it also slopes down to Oldfield. The adjoining properties are set back 40 some odd feet. The existing houses are about 15 feet or so off of the street. At this point, I would ask, I will stop sharing. I'll ask Emmeline if she could share. Okay.
Is that the one you want, Jeff?
Actually, if you go back page.
That one?
Very good.
Okay.
That's the one. Okay, so as we see now, the buildings have been moved back to 47 feet off of the street line. Originally, they were out quite close, similar to what the existing house was, but we're more in line with the existing buildings. The regulations in the district require 20 feet. Now we're at 47 feet. We have 2 triplexes and 2 duplexes. The buildings are basically, the triplexes are 55 by 32.7, and the duplexes are 44 feet by 32.7. What we have here is, again, a garage for each unit, and because we do that, we have the ability to have their own trash receptacles interior to the garage and no need for a dumpster or dumpster screening, as it were. We do have a mailbox kiosk out by the street. And as part of the storm management plan for this site, we are not directing any of the mitigated drainage out towards the tidal wetlands. There's a small swale along the back of the building, which we'll show later, that goes out to the wetlands. But we do have a stormwater management system underneath the driveway and parking area, and we're using permeable concrete pavers for the drainage there. So again, it gives an enhanced appeal
to the overall development. The duplex to the rear of the property, which faces out towards the tidal wetlands, will have an elevated deck. The grade drops off to the back. And again, we showed a 50-foot offset to the wetlands when it was unsure at one point whether or not it was a tidal or inland jurisdiction, but it was delineated by Bill Kenny and demonstrated that it is tidal wetlands. Okay, Emmeline, we can go on to the next sheet. So what we have outlined here with my cursor is the underground storage area. And we have roof drains that will come into small yard drains in front and will then be brought into the infiltration field. And then there would be ability to overflow out into the street. We are bringing city water in, gas, all the public utilities which are available. It is pretty much a flat space there. We are in a flood hazard area, so the entrance levels have been elevated. First floors are above elevation 19. There'll be venting for the ground level with the garage level, and it will meet all the flood zone requirements. But as you can see, the ground does drop off to the rear, and we're staying out of that area. We can go on to the next page, Emmeline. Okay, so this is the basic S&E measures in the soils. Again, we have a very, very small, very shallow swale along the back of the unit so as to not have any water drain onto the adjoining property. There's a lot of contours there, but it really is only going down about 6 to 10 inches in depth. It's very, very shallow, but it does serve with a little small berm along the fence line to prevent any seepage or any flow onto the adjoining property. Show an area for a topsoil stockpile and the silt fence along any kind of area before the slope breaks off. And then again, we have a construction entrance to mitigate any kind of materials going onto the street. Silt sack out on the street catch basin. Next sheet, please. Okay, on the landscaping, if you could slide actually up and let me get to the table, that would be helpful. Other way. Whoops. Back to the landscaping. Okay, over to the right there. Okay, so, whoops. So what we have here is, I actually have originally here that a number of native trees that we, after discussion with staff, that we've integrated onto the property. And we have about 25 to over 25 trees on a 0.8 of an acre site. So it's going to be interesting to add some more trees. And a couple of hundred a variety of shrubs, utilizing shrubs that are basically integral to the area that it's located near the seashore area. So that we feel will be a very, very complementary to the area. Okay, if we go back to the overall plan, landscape plan. So again, in the area that we're to the rear, to the tidal wetlands there, again, shadblow, viburnum, magnolia, dogwood, and then we have a series of shade trees and shrubs along the property there. And again, we have a shrub row on the west side between the parking area and the adjoining property. Again, some shade trees, a number of ornamental trees. We have Quonset cherry trees along the area here, and also looking to maintain, to make sure that we're maintaining the sight line that Mr. Galante would speak to. So I'm not quite sure exactly where the additional trees are going to fit in, but we'll address those afterwards.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? You're talking about the additional screening that Mr. Fallon was referring to earlier in the hearing?
yes, I have not seen that discussion.
Mr. Chairman, for
So-
the record, John Fallon, that was agreed to today, and we're confident, obviously, we can accommodate the additional screening in the context of this plan. So we would, have you make that a condition of approval along the lines of the language I gave you, and then, with a provision that we'd submit a revised landscape plan for staff's review. But we can certainly accommodate that additional screening. But that was something that Mr. Green and I discussed and agreed to this afternoon.
Okay.
Okay, very good. On to the next sheet, please. Okay, that's just a demolition plan. Do we have the lighting plan here, Emmeline? Oh. Up, there we go. And come down a little further. Let's get the graphics are more helpful. Okay, so basically we have a computerized a generation of what the lighting would be at night to make sure that we mitigate any spillage. And this was done with the original plan with the 13 units. So we obviously lose a building in the front here, but the lighting stays the same because we still have to light the driveway out to the street. It does not actually account for the shadows or whatnot that would be created by the landscaping along the perimeter. So this shows you how the lighting with the LED lighting is directed and captured entirely within the field of the parking area. Okay, and I wasn't going to speak much towards the to the drainage because Mr. Wee-Way of my office was unable to be with us tonight. He's been working with Laura on that, and he did make the accommodation. The drainage plan stayed the same, even though there's a reduction of units. So the reduction in the impervious would actually accrue to a better benefit on the overall site. The infiltration testing that was done was more than adequate. So we have the ability to store water, to infiltrate water, and to provide the water quality requirements according to your regulations and the state requirements. And most of these are the items that are covered in the CAM application. Basically the landscaping, the drainage, the capture that we have to have when you're within 500 feet of a tidal wetlands. And basically all the mitigated water is going the opposite way from the wetlands. A slight runoff on a grass swale on this small area to the back would find its way out towards the tidal wetlands. But there are really no coastal issues that come out with a project of this nature. So really that's all I have to share on the civil aspect of things.
Thank you very much, Jeff. I would want to point out for the record, obviously, as Jeff indicated, we've worked closely with Ms. Pooley on this, both the original plan, the 13-unit plan, and the revised plan, obviously, which reduces impervious area. And she's reviewed it and has approved it. So we have worked closely and we appreciate her help. At this point, I'd like to have our architect, Greg Grew, give you a brief overview of our architectural design, exterior elevations. Greg?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Milton Gregory Grew. I'm a licensed architect. My office is located at 241 Main Street South in Woodbury, Connecticut. And Emmeline, are you going to be sharing the screen for the architectural
sure.
drawings as well?
Yep, I can do that.
Thank you so much. Okay. There we go. So, as has already been described, we have two buildings which are triplexes. They have 3 townhouses each, and then we have 2 buildings that are essentially 2-family dwellings. They have 2 townhouses each in them for a total of 10 units. So this sheet depicts the typical triplex building where on the first floor, the ground level, we obviously have a garage, the entry into the unit with a set of stairs going up, and a utility space in the back for mechanicals and such. The on the second floor is essentially the living level, and there we have an open kitchen, dining, and living space. And then on the third floor would be the 2 bedrooms with a large shared bath. There will also be the possibility for a loft, what the International Residential Code calls a mezzanine, that would essentially be over and above the bathroom, but look out over the master bedroom, the larger bedroom, to the rear of the unit. The International Residential Code allows you to have a mezzanine or loft that's not counted as a story as long as it's no more than 1/3 of the size of the space it's open to. So,
what is, if I may just ask a couple questions, what is the overall height of the building?
Let's see, the dimension is there on the right side of that. To the peak is 40 feet, and it's a 34-foot mean height.
And those units which have that mezzanine built in, does that change the outward appearance of the structure and the overall height of any of the buildings?
No, on the end units, they simply have a window on the gable end, and as you can see here in the center unit, we just simply have a dormer.
Thank you.
Sure. The intent of the design is to be basically a traditional design that has a clapboard siding on the upper 2 floors and a board and batten or vertical type siding on the lower level. Now the fourth building number 4, that is in line with these triplexes. No, please stay on that same sheet. Sorry, Emily. That only has 2 units. Those 2 units would have the same arrangement. It's a little wider. It goes, those 2 dwellings go from 18 feet 4 inches to 22 feet wide, but the basic floor plan would be the same as these units. Now, if we go to the next sheet, the next sheet depicts, this is the duplex that has its rear wall facing the tidal wetlands to the north. And so in this case, for this one building, we basically flipped the floor plan so that we could take advantage of having the living space with its view out over the wetlands and have decks on the rear of these 2 units. So we have the same arrangement on the ground floor of the garage entry and utility space, but then on the second floor, we've flipped the plan around, so now we have a dining room that would face the parking area, the driveway, a kitchen in the middle of the floor plan, and then the living space on the north side facing the tidal wetlands. And then going up to the second floor, again, we have bedroom arrangement.
Yeah, you're going a little bit light on the mic. If you could just speak a little bit, speak up and maybe get a little closer. Yep, thank you.
Okay, sorry.
No, I had the same issue apparently earlier in the meeting. So yeah.
So you can see it's very, very similar in design, except for the fact that on the second floor, the living level, that we focused attention on the view and access to the wetlands.
Thank you, Greg. Very much appreciate it. Michael Galanti is there somewhere, I believe, and he obviously prepared a traffic report, and you've had that, and we want to have him briefly just give you an overview of his findings as amended relative to the reduction in units from 13 to 10. Michael?
Thank you. Good evening, Mike Galanti, Hardesty in Hanover. I'll just briefly summarize the traffic report that's dated May of this year, and then a supplemental letter that refers to the reduction of 3 units and the reduction in site traffic as it relates to that. We did traffic counts in March of 2020, the week before the pandemic started, which seems like a long time ago. We collected that data, actual machine counts along Oldfield Road along the site frontage, machine counts for, I think, 3 days actually. We adjusted and increased those volumes by 10% based on discussions with CONDOT, and they approved the volumes for the purpose of this traffic study. Summary: weekday morning 8 to 9 o'clock was the peak hour, almost 400 vehicles traveling two-way. And the afternoon peak was 5 to 6 p.m. With 569 vehicles, a two-way volume. Pattern-wise, it kind of flows with the commuter traffic in the morning going, let's call it, towards Stanford or Westport. In the afternoon, it's coming back from Westport into town.
Was that March 10 to 14, 2020? That was before the pandemic closed schools? That was still during school was still in session, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Everything was, let's call it, normal traffic conditions that week. And right
And
after that, things changed, and we all stayed home for a couple of days and went back to work, and a lot of people stayed home for a year and a half, basically.
Yeah, right. No, so what days of the week were March 10 to 14?
Oh, well, I'm sure it was Monday. The total volume was, I'm sure, Monday through Friday. We picked on the week middle to.
It was Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday. We always stay with, obviously the busiest days of the week, but we wouldn't count a Friday afternoon, for example.
Was that spring break for school or not?
Oh, no. Schools were open.
Open. Very good.
Yeah. We wouldn't do counts when the schools are closed.
Okay.
So anyhow, those are the volumes that we recorded, and that was the baseline condition for our traffic counts. Then we expanded those volumes to a future traffic condition, in this case, a 2022 traffic condition. We increased it by, I think the state again told us to use a 0.6% per year growth rate. It should be the next one down, Emmeline. Next sheet down. Yeah, okay, I didn't summarize it. I kept it out, but the background condition is a 2022 baseline traffic condition. There are really no other developments in the immediate vicinity that would add traffic to Oldfield. So we simply included a growth rate of 0.6% for a 2-year period. Site traffic, I'll touch on site traffic and then go back to accident history. Site traffic for 10 units generates 5 trips in the morning and 6 trips in the afternoon. Majority of that traffic, it's not evenly split 50-50, but some of it's more of it's going towards town hall, if you will, in that direction, and using roads such as South Pine Creek and eventually Reef Road towards Post Road. Accident data obtained from the police department for a 3-year period, which is, we always use 3 years, 2017 through 2019. There were 2 reported accidents, and those 2 reported accidents occurred towards the South Pine Creek intersection, which is this all-way stop sign control intersection. One accident was a right angle, and one accident was someone overpassing another vehicle. Let's call it a sideswipe, if you will. Emmeline, the next sheet.
Yeah, Mr. Galante, just
yes.
So you know, March 10 to 14 was a Tuesday through Saturday, and March 10 Tuesday was an early dismissal system-wide for K through 12.
Okay, I'll have to double check that. I mean, there may have been an early dismissal we didn't know about, but I'll check the exact day of the count and then get back to you later this evening. As far as we only use one of the days out of the volumes, and I'll see if I can tell you that real quickly. If you can wait a second. The data we used was actually Thursday, March 11th.
Thursday in March of 2020 was March 12th.
Okay, then our figure is not correct as far as the
No, it
I'm
wasn't.
sorry, it is March 12th. Oh, yep.
I'm looking at the school calendar.
Okay. Well, we can certainly check that, but the 10% increase in volume may address that issue, but we can certainly check.
Okay.
Okay, but thanks for the information.
Mm-hmm.
Normally don't miss that. Anyhow, back to, we did the analysis of the driveway itself, and again, this is based on the 13 units and the volume of traffic on Oldfield that I mentioned before. It would operate at a level of service B or better, meaning it could be A or B as far as the traffic exiting the driveway and the volume of traffic turning left into the driveway. That's what you analyze for an unsignalized intersection. In this case, a stop sign control on the driveway exit. Access analysis, which is in this case site distance. We checked with Laura Pooley. She was involved during the entire process. She looked at the volume, not the volumes, the speeds, and the sight lines prepared and plotted on the site plan itself, and she accepted the results of the analysis. The posted speed limit is 25 miles per hour on that section of the road. The actual speed of motors traveling was up to 25. Your voices up to 25 miles per hour. So the required site distance, in this case, intersection site distance, is 280 feet. We provide 280 feet or more in each direction on Oldfield Road.
Do you have is that analyzed in the report? Do you have a chart? I just didn't recall seeing it when I went through it.
It would typically be a table with the speed data in the appendix.
And what are the actual sight lines, both left and right?
Well, we always show what's required and needed as per the standards that we follow. That's CONDOT. They basically want us to show what is needed and not the extra site distance. And the reason for that is if something was to change, and they rather see what's required on a site plan, and that's what we show on the site plan and what we match to what's based on the speed studies we did. If you wanted to go and say, well, what is the additional sight lines, you would show that you have additional site distance more to the east, if you will, and slightly more to the west. So we have more than 280 feet.
Do you know what the number is?
No, not offhand. No, I'd have to measure it, but no, I don't know.
Is it in the report?
No, it's not in the report. We show the 280 feet that's needed, and that's what we show that's available.
That's what Ms. Pooley wanted us to do, to just show that we have the sight lines, and that's what we have, and that was 280 feet.
Okay. I mean, you know, we've been doing this now for quite a while, and you know, I can't remember the last time that I saw a sightline analysis and report where it was just we have the required and not showing us the full Monty. You know, 320, 327, whatever it is, and part of the reason that it's important, or that I shouldn't say important, informative. Part of the reason why that is informative, and I'm not suggesting that there is an issue in this necessarily in this application, but in some applications there are circumstances where there might be hedgerows, there might be some, you know, different things in the sightline that you may take account or may not take account, and quite frankly, if you have the extra, you know, you get the benefit of that and so forth. So I would request that you please provide the calculations and tell us what you've got to the right and to the left, you know, in addition to the calculation of the average speed.
Can we submit that
to me? Thank you.
Can we submit that to staff? You know, and then you'll have it for your work session?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. I'm not suggesting that we need to hold the meeting open or anything like that, but you know, you've made the representation that you meet the requirements. It's just I think it important that the record have the calculation showing the whole thing.
We'll see that submitted to you through staff before your next meeting. Great.
Thank you. It's pretty amazing to me that the speed limit is 25. I mean, you gotta say it's a rare thing that the average speed is equal to the posted limit.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I had the same reaction, but it's based on 16,800 samples,
right?
So over a 3-day period. So we're pretty confident that's the speed that's out there. You would typically find speeds a little bit higher. And keep in mind, the 85th, it's not the average speed, it's the 85th percentile speed, so it's higher than average. Just to go back to the measuring of the sight lines, I always show what's required because that's based on my discussions with CONDOT many years ago. In the future, I will provide you what, you know, the maximum available sight distance is and the required just for you, and we'll put it in the table format and on the plan if necessary, but we'll show that. Keep in mind that, and you know, of course, Mr. Chairman and other commissioners, when we measure site distance, it's within in this case, the town right of way. So we're not looking through someone's hedges on their property. I mean, we've had this discussion before. And if you look at the plan that was prepared and submitted, those sight lines are outside of anyone's private property next to us. And we went through that. That was obviously a very detailed first step for us quite a while ago. So,
Mhm. Yes, and as I mentioned, I'm not trying to suggest that there's any issue with that with respect to this application, but, you know, that.
That's
it's
fine.
not-
We'll get you that information for sure.
That's fine. Absolutely, not a problem. So anyhow, we have the site distance that's required. Laura Pulley has reviewed this information and agreed and accepted it. So I would say we're good as far as that. Emmeline, the next shot, I think, is just a photograph of the area. This is just simply the shots along Old Field to give you an idea. It's straight and flat, quite frankly. Sidewalks, we avoided, someone else's property, such as a fence line, corners of properties and so on. And that's just the measurements match that on the plan itself. The last sheet should be one more. It's just really just a very quick summary. This type of development generates about 6 trips during a peak hour. That would be in the morning and afternoon during the commuter peak, if you will. And it meets the town standards, which is really the CONDOT standards as far as how we measure site distance and what we need. In this case, it's 280 feet in each direction based on that speed of 25 miles per hour, which happens to also be the posted speed limit. And that's a summary.
Mike, just one question, Mike. That traffic summary that you just had on the last slide, 6 trips per peak hour, that was based on 13 units?
No, I believe
Is that the revised based on 10?
That's the revised case. With the 10 units, it's 5 trips in the morning peak hour and 6 trips in the afternoon.
Okay, thank you.
It's up to 6 trips.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is just a reference site location, man.
Okay.
That's all we have.
I think we're done with the screen share then. Mr. Chairman, that's really what we have, subject to any questions that you might have. I'll have a few summary comments after questions and any public comment, but that's our presentation for now. Thank you.
Okay. Any other members of the commission have any questions for Attorney Fallon or any of the witnesses? I'm getting some feedback in my thing, so you're not speaking. You can mute. I see Commissioner Francis with her hand up.
For Mr. Grew, the architect, could he tell me, are the windows double pane or single?
The windows would have to be at least double pane. We have to meet the energy code, which requires, if you're familiar with Windows, a U factor of 0.32 maximum, and that you have to have an insulated window, perhaps even filled with argon to meet that requirement.
Okay, and then the soundproofing. Could you?
So in the wall between the units.
Yeah, yeah. So as they back up to each other,
Yeah. So the state building code has requirements for what the sound rating has to be between the units, and it's called a minimum of an STC sound transmission classification of 50.
Excuse me, of how much?
So essentially, would be a double framed stud wall that is completely filled with insulation, and so you usually achieve like a 60 with that instead of 50.
So you're getting an STC 60. And could
approximately,
you discuss?
Yes. I mean, we haven't developed the construction details for it yet, but I can assure you that it will be at least what the building code requires.
And can you discuss the sprinkler system?
The Connecticut State Building Code does not require fire sprinklers for these units. There are no sprinklers.
There aren't?
That's correct.
It was subject to a code review meeting, November 17th. That was fully discussed at the time. Unlike certain other multifamily proposals that have been made, in this particular instance, especially with the reduction to 10 units, there's no requirement for sprinklers, as Mr. Grew says, under the code, nor was there, a major consideration there by the fire department. It's a small residential development.
Townhouses are designed. I'm getting some echo here. Townhouses are designed and built according to the International Residential Code. That's the code that applies to your single-family home, a two-family dwelling, or townhouses. Apartment buildings and stacked units, things like that, those are designed under what's called the International Building Code, which is for lack of a better term, more the commercial code. And in that, residential occupancies are required to have sprinklers, but not townhouses.
Yeah, we're usually dealing with apartments. That's why I found it. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other members of the commission? Commissioner Braun?
I was looking at the code review notes. It's hard to tell because it changed since then, but it's hard to tell what was addressed or what wasn't. Can I just pinpoint a couple things, and whatever expert has the answer can let me know? We talked about sprinkler. That was recommended by the fire department. Engineering had some comments, and this might be for the engineer that spoke, about the Marsh line. Have subsurface testing been conducted? Soil tanking, determine the depth of the marsh below, and also they were talking about marsh retreat and provide upland areas that could potentially convert. Can the engineer address those comments? They're in the code review under the engineering section.
Yeah, as a preliminary matter, let me say that this code review on November 17th, 2020 involved a proposal for 17 units. And as I said at the beginning of my presentation, it led to a series of numerous meetings that we had with Ms. Pooley in the engineering department. So I can confidently say that all of the comments that were made at the November 17 code review meeting have been addressed by way of a reduction in the scope of the project. And the very catalyst for doing that was the the comments that we received, especially from Ms. Pooley at the code minutes. So I think you can certainly confirm with her as part of your staff's activities before you determined to discuss this and hopefully vote favorably on it, that all those comments that were made by her at the time of the code meeting, which envisioned a much more intense site plan, have been addressed.
Has the location of the development activity moved farther away from the tidal wetlands, or is it still?
We were requested from the outset to maintain the 50-foot separation. At the time, there was some question relative to whether the wetlands were tidal or inland, but the 50-foot setback that was established, as again the plan evolved after the code meeting, is what was requested. And I do have a letter or an email that I can again share with Mr. Wendt. I don't know if he received this, but it's from Sarah Nefsey at Conservation, dated May 21, 2021, indicating that they found that there was no inland wetlands jurisdiction because it was all tidal. But nonetheless, we did maintain that 50-foot setback.
So,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Kathy, but if I may, Mr. Chairman, I think what may be helpful is I was privy to several Zoom meetings that occurred between the applicant in the engineering department and myself subsequent to the code meeting, because the original code plan had, as Mr. Fallon just said, a much more extensive filling that I think some of our code comments also reflected, that we were encouraging the applicant to reduce the amount of fill proposed on the site. And that led to revisions to the plan. If it would be helpful to the commission, we could scan the original code site plan so you can contrast the difference between what had been originally put forth and where we stand now. But there have been a lot of discussions in some of our own, I believe, department comments in the code meeting centered around reducing the amount of fill that was originally proposed, which resulted in them reducing the number of units. So not to interrupt you, Commissioner Braun, but if you think it's helpful, we can certainly scan the original engineering plan so you can see how it's evolved.
I'd also like to hear from Ms. Cooley to see if her concerns were all addressed, because it's very technical and hard for a layperson to understand things about salt marsh retreat and whatnot, and amount of fill and elevation and things like that.
We're absolutely, Kathy, we're fine with that. I mean, I think that's a good idea. But and I endorse it because we did work so hard. We probably, since the code review meeting in November of 2020, I know Jim indicated, we probably had at least a half a dozen meetings with Laura, and Jim was included in at least 3 of those. So I think that's fine, because all of these things, what you have before you tonight, and had with the 13-unit plan, now further reduced, did address all those comments, but you should have that confirmed.
And when you mentioned the 50-foot setback, do you mean the upland review area in that particular watershed for inland wetlands, or are you talking about a tidal wetland buffer?
At the time that we first started having conversations with conservation, and they were not yet certain whether or not there was an inland wetland or a tidal wetland issue there, they were requesting that the 50-foot setback, which they considered to be the upland review area, be maintained. It turned out it was tidal wetlands, and they waived any jurisdiction, but we determined to maintain that setback anyway.
And who made the determination that, because the code review indicates that from the conservation department that it requires an inland wetlands permit as regulated from a neighbor's property. So there must be wetlands on a neighbor's property. Maybe that's even different than the ones you're referring to, which are in the tidal area or the marsh area.
I have an email from the Wetlands Compliance Officer, which I'll submit to the record through Mr. Wendt, where the Wetlands Compliance Officer indicates, and I quote, "After review of the site plan and delineation letter prepared by soil scientist William Kenny dated January 31, 2020, the Conservation Department has determined that the proposed site work at 888 and 898 Oldfield Road will not require a permit from the Inland Wetlands Agency. The determination is based on the fact that the wetlands adjacent to the Oldfield Road property are wetlands which are regulated. The project will undergo review for consistency under CAM." So they've reviewed this, and I'll make this part of what we give to Mr. Wendt. But
I'd like to get the Kenny soil report and whatever happened with conservation department that says we don't need a wetlands permit anymore, or we might have thought we did. And anything from Laura Pooley that might help. But could I still ask is your engineer still here? Can I ask him to just explain a little bit about this marsh concern? Because the project doesn't look like it moved farther away from the marsh. But
well,
so
I'm happy. I'll do whatever the chair wants us to do, but I would suggest respectfully that your question with regard to documentation, that all of the concerns raised by engineering in the November code review have been addressed, I think are well-founded and well taken. We've addressed all that. If the commission wants to get involved in a discussion about considerations that involved a 17-unit proposal and how it might impact the marsh, we can certainly do that. But the simple explanation is that this project now is reduced to 10 units, and subject to confirmation directly by Ms. Pooley, all of this has been addressed to her satisfaction, and all of this should be considered in the context, obviously, of an 8-30G application.
Since the engineer is here, I would like the engineer to just address those few points that were made since he's here. That's a different expert than Ms. Pooley would be.
Mr. Gordon, are you still on the phone? Yeah.
So my specific questions are, you might not have the code review minutes in front of you, but if I just point out the points that were made, was there any subsurface testing to see what the marsh looks like underneath the property? And first of all, has the distance from the marsh changed since you changed the plan?
Jeff, you just have to unmute your phone.
He's still muted. Can you unmute him?
We can figure out which call-in user he is. Let's see.
No, I don't think that you can do that with a dial-in user. I think you can only do that with people who are on the video app. But I'm not sure. Emmeline, you are muted.
Sorry. I think you might have to press 9 or something like that to unmute yourself.
It says star something and then it.
Star 6.
That's better. I can hear him now.
Well, you hear him through his computer.
Yeah.
I think star 6 will unmute you.
Okay, I should be good now.
You're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna share the earlier 17-unit drawing, and I'll discuss briefly what we had there. Okay. All right, can we see this now?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the 17-unit project. Here is the 50-foot offset line, and the concern was in this area over here that you might be getting some sort of a groundwater or expansion of the tidal area into this area as time went on. Also, the site, there was quite a bit of filling to elevate all these buildings, and I believe the original concept was going to be infiltrators as opposed to the permeable pavement, which is much closer to the surface. So there was concern about the groundwater table and how it would interact with infiltrators, because we were way back in this area with the drainage. Now we're way up front here, and the buildings in this area are gone. They're pulled back to somewhere in the middle of what was a little cul-de-sac, and this building line is pushed way back. So, you know, the project has gotten much more consolidated, and the concerns about any kind of expansion of the tidal area would certainly be alleviated by not being anywhere in that area whatsoever.
Thank you.
So you have moved the closest buildings to the marsh horizontally away from the marsh? Do you know approximately how far away? I'm looking at mine on my, it does look like it's a little bit farther away. Is it like 50 feet farther away, or that might solve the whole issue?
It's probably somewhere, well, actually, I would ask if Emmeline could share that again. It'd be a lot easier.
You'd have to stop. Okay, there you go.
And the reason I ask is she's saying the two that are closest to the north marshes, right?
I'm sorry, you broke up there a little bit for me.
The north, when we look north, that's where the tidal marsh is, right?
Yeah, Emmeline, we have the site plan?
Yeah, hold on one second.
Okay.
Just, sorry. All right, give me 1 second. Apologize.
So we're getting some feedback while we wait. I'll just ask anyone who's not speaking if you can mute your lines, please. Emmeline, you trying to share?
Okay. That's helpful. So here, where the building is located, is probably a good 60 to 80 some odd feet further forward than where it was originally.
Like further forward, south.
Right, away from the marsh towards the street.
Yeah,
So
you see that 50-foot line there. that was bifurcating the building. The building was crossing over the middle. That line went right through the middle of it, and you can see how far clear it is forward now.
The 50-foot line is the dark dashed line?
The light dash line.
The light dashed line, okay. Got it.
Okay.
And so if I could just ask for confirmation of this observation, that by reducing the number of units from 17 to 10, you've both brought them further into the property from the street line and also further away from the wetlands areas.
Correct.
Exactly.
And the last, so in your opinion, that addresses Laura Pooley's, and we'll get her notes, but from your opinion, does that address her issue about whether or not you need to test for subsurface marsh activity because you're far enough away from the marsh?
Well, I think she was more concerned about the type of drainage that we were considering doing, which would have gone deeper into the soils. And she was concerned about the difference between the groundwater, if the groundwater would have had a salt content to it, if it would have been a brackish water. So and again, that drainage was almost where that last duplex building is now. We had the drainage over that far back, but now the drainage is well forward towards the street, so there's nothing going into the to the groundwater there. Plus, we have a much shallower design system than what was originally discussed.
And the last point you made about marshes, and you're going to have to explain what this means. Salt marsh retreat and a recommendation to provide upland areas that could potentially and most likely convert to salt marsh in the next 30 years. Suggest holding elevation 7.5 as elevation to use for building setback line. Current mean high water is 3.25. Add 2 feet by 2050. I guess she's talking about climate change and ocean levels rising. Add 2 feet to the CAL line equals 7.25 feet. What can you explain what that means and if that is accomplished by the revised plan?
Well, that was a discussion about, will the water levels go up? But the 325 line is right along the tidal wetlands line to the northeast, and that's elevation 3.25. Our buildings are up around elevation 12. So, and you see there's an embankment. There's really a stark slope that comes up that 50 foot. That whole 50-foot area is basically an embankment, and we're well clear of that. So even if 40 years down the road we wound up with the water level going up, a few feet, it would not even come close to anywhere near where we're building now. But it was a concern where we were before.
Okay, because you're farther back away, so you're higher up vertically?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Oh, and what is, you might not be the person, might be the architect. You might have said this already, but I couldn't hear. What is the height of the tallest building and what is the proximity of those buildings to the neighbor's property on the east? It looks like on the west it's just parking areas, but to the west it looks like it's parking, but to the east it looks like the buildings are very close to the neighbor's house.
The height measured to your, by your standard definition, your definition of height to the midpoint, et cetera, is 34 feet. The height to the highest peak is 40 feet.
And what's the horizontal distance to the property? I guess on the east, that's where the buildings are closest to the neighbors' houses, I guess, it looks like.
Well, that can be scaled, I guess, by the site plan. I'd have to do it, but.
On sheet SP1, prepared by Codispodi and Associates, there are dimensions of 12 of, let's see, for the north, for the east side, the offset from the property line is 12.8 feet. That's what I'm seeing as a dimension on SP1.
You went right by it there.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioners have any questions for the applicant or any of the experts. Okay. Seeing and hearing none. If you are not talking, please mute. Thank you. We will now, Attorney Fallon, I assume you're good to go into public hearing?
I may have a quick closing comment, but I'd like to allow the public to speak first.
Yeah, sure. You definitely reserve rebuttal. So we'll go to public comment first. And I know that when we convened at the last meeting, we were informed that Attorney Green was representing contingent of neighbors, and neighboring residents, and so he asked for, well, you jointly asked for an adjournment so that he could prepare his remarks. So we'll call on Attorney Green first to speak on behalf of the neighbors, and then we'll move into those who have signed up in the chat, and then I'll call for any others who would like to be heard. Attorney Green?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission staff. My name is Joel Green. I practice law in Bridgeport with the law offices of Green and Gross. I also live in Fairfield, but it's my pleasure tonight to appear on behalf of 16 different homes and homeowners who live in the area of the proposed development, including on Oldfield Road, on Geneva Terrace, Ennis Lane, and East Lawn Street. I am pleased to report, and I want to thank the commission for your generous indulgence in holding this matter open. And with that, I'm pleased to report that the applicant and my client, the neighbors, engaged in a very respectful and productive dialogue that resulted in the revised plan that is before the commission this evening. I really just have two comments on the site plan, and I think Attorney Fallon can bless these as well. In addition to the landscaping plan, just minor details. There's a mail kiosk by the street that was referenced. My clients have actually reached out to the postmaster, and I think the applicant is in agreement that if the postmaster concurs that the mail kiosk would be moved to the interior of the property and not on the front of the property. If the postmaster does not agree with that, then it will stay where it is, but we're hopeful that he will agree to that, which will again pull some of the traffic and stop traffic deeper into the development. And the only other aspect is on the southeast corner, and it was referenced this evening. There's a transformer, and as I understand it, the applicant will screen that with some shrubs or some sort of landscaping to try to shield the view of the transformer. I really have nothing more to add. I'd like to thank the applicant and Attorney Fallon for their generous cooperation. It was, we're all resistant to change, and for my clients, this isn't perfect, and it's not perfect for all involved. I know the developer would like to have a larger development, the one that he started with, and we'd obviously like to have a smaller development, but we engaged in a dialogue. We shared our concerns, our objectives, and we were able to, sort of reach this common ground. As you know, we do have a housing crisis in Connecticut, and these are important dialogues, and this was certainly an important dialogue. And so once again, and these are the kind of dialogues that we need to be having in Fairfield for the benefit of the town and its residents. So once again, I thank the applicant, I thank Attorney Fallon, and I want to thank the commission for your generous patience and indulgence. I don't know if you have any questions for me.
I do. So can you please just share for the record who and how many neighbors you're representing in the matter?
So I represent 16 households, and I do have a list, and I would be happy to submit that list to staff if that would be helpful. I can read it, but it's probably longer than my remarks.
That's fine. If you wouldn't mind submitting a list of those you represent to staff for the record, that would be helpful.
I'll take care of that.
Are these do you represent the adjoining property owners?
I represent property owners directly across the street. I honestly didn't plot all of them, but I know all of the neighbors directly across the street. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on Oldfield Road, and the numbers appear to be generally sequential. So I think we pretty well surround it. And then again, there's Geneva Terrace, East Lawn, and Ennis. So I would say that we have the landscape pretty well covered.
Okay, so you would agree with me that that is generally speaking the neighbors in the immediately surrounding area of the project?
That's my understanding, Mr. Chairman.
All right, very good. And apart from the mailbox inquiry, your clients are in support of and in favor of the revised proposal?
Oh, we are not certainly in not opposition to it. Once again, everyone is resistant to change, but under the circumstances, we use the phrase, it's something we can be tolerably unhappy with, and under the circumstances. So,
fine, very good. Any other members of the commission have any other questions for Attorney Green? Okay, I don't see anyone. I don't hear anyone. Very good. Thank you, Attorney Green.
Thank you.
Ms. Harrigan, do we have anyone signed up in the chat for this item?
Yes, we have a Raymond Laflamme, and we don't have anyone else after him.
All right, very good. Sir?
Mr. Chairman, I represent, among others, Mr. Laflamme. I spoke to him earlier, and I think he's satisfied with my remarks as I understand it. And
okay, very well.
He'll be speaking.
All right, very well. Any other members of the public wish to be heard on this item? 888 Oldfield Road. This is the time to speak. This is probably one of the most challenging part of the. It's actually a double-edged sword. It's the most challenging, and yet it's the most opportunity, right? Because having the remote session, any members of the public can participate in the hearing in the comfort of their own living room. But with the technology, I need to be able to hear and see people, and so.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
It looks like we have a Matthew Sanders who would like to speak.
All right, Mr. Sanders. See, I was trying to, just fill the air and let people kind of jump in if they wanted to, Mr. Sanders.
Yeah, so thank you for the time. I'm not even sure if I'm being represented by Mr. Green. I have not heard since the last meeting, and I'm sure that not all the neighbors have.
No problem. You want to just state your full name and your,
Matthew Sanders, 903 Oldfield Road.
Terrific. Thank you, sir.
Right. That's directly across the street, next to Mr. Laflamme. I had gone and gotten signatures from the neighborhood when it was 13 in opposition, and there was a lot of opposition and a lot of just people were just resigned to the fact that you can't fight this, you can't fight 830G, but there is a lot of opposition. There was cited the one that just went up on Reef when they talk about traffic and traffic patterns. I just want to make sure that has not fully been developed, is being taken into consideration when discussing traffic volumes. The dates that were mentioned were 3/10 to 3/14. I know the last day of school was 3/12. So those are 2 or 3 pandemic days. So I'm just concerned about the volume numbers of traffic. And then
your children go to Fairfield Public Schools?
Yes, Mill Hill.
And you tell me the COVID pandemic was shut down the schools on March 12th?
Yes.
Okay.
So, I'm just more frustrated in the process and how this is working for the town, in that I'm going on weekends and we are chipping in for a lawyer to have the zoning laws that are on the books upheld. It just seems backwards, and I think the people in the neighborhood are concerned that large complexes can go in just about anywhere that there's any space, and they are the biggest concern I heard was the volume of traffic, and just that it was not in context of what was in the neighborhood. And I'm just want to put that those concerns on the record.
Very good. Thank you for your comments. let the applicant address those on rebuttal. Any other members of the public wish to be heard?
I don't see anyone else at this time.
Yeah, and I don't hear anyone else, and I think we've given enough of a call here to be sufficient. So with that, then I will
A couple of comments, Mr. Chair.
this isn't the time for comments. We can discuss this in our executive session when we consider the
A couple of questions, I should say.
If you have questions for the applicant, then they're going to do their rebuttal, and then we'll have a chance to ask the applicant any final questions that we have after they speak.
Might I have the questions now? Just I'd like to end with the rebuttal. If there's a question, I just assume.
Well, of course you're going to end with the rebuttal. Of course you will. But why don't we see if Commissioner Francis's questions are answered through your comments, so that we don't take this in a disjointed fashion. So the public hearing portion of the matter is now closed, and we'll go into the applicant's rebuttal, and we'll have an opportunity to ask them any further questions at the time. Okay. Attorney Fallon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, for your patience. I want to start by just echoing Mr. Green's comments. It comes as no surprise that Mr. Green and I work on a lot of developments together, and many of them have been in front of this commission. And I think we both aspire, although not always successfully, to the kind of result I hope you'll agree we've achieved here tonight. And that is when 8-30G, which is controversial, but if it can be used in such a way that you can collaborate and work constructively with your neighbors and your co-counsel, so that you come up with something, as Mr. Green says, that like any compromise isn't perfect. Change is difficult. Obviously, my client started out thinking of 17 units, but I think it's a healthy way for us to proceed at a time when I know Fairfield is sensitive to affordable housing. I know this commission is sensitive to affordable housing and has been very forthright in terms of your review of previous 8-30G applications. When you see Mr. Green's list, which I could read to you too, I have it, but that would be too long. It is a very impressive list of over 16 homeowners, as he says, on East Lawn and Geneva and all over Oldfield. So we're glad we were able to reach this consensus with the neighbors. We thank the neighbors. We thank their counsel, Mr. Green. And we think we have a development that will inure to not only the benefit of Fairfield with regard to its need for affordable housing, but also to this fine neighborhood. The application, I think, speaks for itself. The standards of 8-30G, I think you will comply with. We will add 3 units, much needed units of affordable housing in Fairfield. As I said before, that'll provide not only the market units, but the affordable units with housing options of the kind that we need in our town. And I think it's a very good application. I think it's a very good way to approach an 8-30G application. Every application speaks for itself and wends its way through the process on its own, but I'm very pleased, and I know my client's very pleased. And I'd like to give a shout out to my client as well, because I think he approached this very much from the standpoint of a developer, if you will, who wanted to work with the neighbors, avoid controversy, and yet come up with a development in the town that the town and the neighborhood can be proud of. So by way of housekeeping, I know we're going to get you the landscaping language that I alluded to earlier, so you'll have that. We'll get you from Mr. Galante the sightline information as the chair requested, giving the information in terms of how long our sightline is. We commend Commissioner Braun's suggestion that you confirm with Ms. Pooley her satisfaction that all of those original issues that were brought in the context of a 17-unit development were addressed. And again, we think this is a strong application. Mr. Sanders mentioned traffic. We're comfortable here, especially with the reduction that we've made with it. 5 or 6 trips per peak hour are not going to have any adverse impact with regard to traffic. And again, the developer took a stance here where rather than trying to use 8-30G as a sword, They worked with the neighbors to come up with a plan that in its density and in its concepts, the architectural design as Mr. Grew has executed it, is going to be a very, very nice and attractive residential development in this very nice neighborhood. So we appreciate your consideration and your patience, and look forward to your decision. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. So, we have any questions for Attorney Fallon or any of the experts here in the rebuttal? Commissioner Francis?
Regarding,
You're now muted. You need to unmute.
regarding the affordability plan, you use the word statewide levels of 80%, 60%. Usually what we hear is Bridgeport area.
No, what it is, what the statute requires and what the affordability plan addresses is that 2 of the units in this case will be reserved for persons earning less than 60% of the statewide median income. And 1 unit by 80% is 80% of the statewide median income. And the reason for that is the median income on a statewide basis is actually lower. So you make the units more affordable if you apply the statewide basis.
Is that something new? I thought we've always heard Bridgeport area median income 80% and 60%.
I can't speak to that. What you've heard, I can tell you what the statute requires. And
is that a revision from this legislation?
No, that's always been what we're talking about.
And secondly, I don't have a copy of the code review minutes, and I feel that I'd like a memo from the fire chief that the sprinkler system is not needed. I feel this development is somewhat dense. I appreciate it being compared to private homes where one is not required, but several buildings close together and somewhat dense, and I just like that in writing.
The only thing that I can say about that, and I don't mean to end this hearing on any sense of controversial note, but what I will say is this: you're certainly entitled through your staff to seek any input from the fire marshal, the fire chief, as you see fit. What the record stands for here is that, as will also be confirmed by the fire marshal, is Mr. Grew's comments, that under the state building code and under the state fire code, sprinkling for these types of units is not required. And I think the commission needs to very carefully consider that in the context of an 8-30G application, where we've recently had case law that has come down on the appellate court level, one of which involved the Westport case that was recently decided, and one called Cross Street LLC, that basically is if you comply with the state fire and building code requirements, then you can't deem the application to be unsafe as a basis for denying an 8-30G. So I understand your concern or your interest in sprinkling, but these units are not sprinkled, and they don't have to be under the state fire and building code. And in the context of an 8-30G, respectfully, that's definitive.
This is Greg, New Architect, and if I could, I'll just give you a little bit more background. There's been a serious deliberation on the part of the state, the Office of the State Building Inspector, State Fire Marshal, and the Codes and Standards Committee, where they determined statewide that sprinklers were not required in single-family homes, two-family dwellings, or townhouses. And so it is not in the Connecticut State Code. And in fact, the Connecticut State Fire Safety has no jurisdiction over townhouses other than the placement of smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms, because they are considered just attached single-family dwellings, essentially.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Francis?
No, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from any other members of the commission? Commissioner Braun?
Probably for Jim. So this does not require coastal site plan review of others tidal wetlands nearby because it's not close to the actual ocean.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I did not understand the question.
That's the applicant, I'm sure, but I don't know that I understood it.
Okay, so it's close to tidal wetlands, but that does not make a coastal site plan review be required. That requires more of a distance from the actual water or the beach area. I'm wondering why there's not a coastal site plan review because it's so close to the tidal wetlands. That was my question.
There is a coastal site plan review as part of this application.
Oh, there is? I can't find it if there is one.
The box is checked.
It was in the original materials. It's not included in the supplemental materials that were submitted for this hearing. It was with the materials for the original hearing.
Okay, I looked in the original master. I couldn't find a coastal site plan review, so I assumed it wasn't required. If it hasn't been provided, could you perhaps send it along? I'll look for it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Take that as a no. Okay. Any other questions from any other commissioners? All right. I don't hear any and I don't see any. So with that, Attorney Fallon,
Thank you.
Close the public hearing on this item.
Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is 801 Post Road. It's a special permit application of Samuel Gardner, architect, pertaining to additions and alterations to establish a restaurant use in the design commercial district. And I believe that is.
Hi, good evening, Chairman and members of the commission. Hopefully you're hearing me correctly.
Hello, Mr. Gardner. You are breaking up just a little bit, but we do hear you clearly.
Okay. I'm architect Sam Gardner. My office is at 390 Ridgefield Road in Wilton, Connecticut. I'm here to present on 801 Post Road, also known as Pizza Co. Restaurant. Attending with me tonight are Declan Mahar and Jordan Bochanis, who are the operators, John Bochanis, who is their attorney, Art Stanko, who's the property owner, and Jimmy Zummo, who is the site engineer for the project. At this point, I would like to hand off to John Bochanis, attorney, to provide the rest of the presentation, and I will be available to answer questions. And I assume that Emmeline will put up the documents for us. Unless she's not able, I can do that as well.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. This is John. My name is John Bochanis, and I represent the applicants in this. Could everybody hear me?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. All right. As was just mentioned, I am the attorney representing the applicants, or Pizza Co. And as for myself and the applicants, we're all Fairfield residents. The proposal for this property on the Post Road, which is on the corner of South Benson Road, is for a pizza restaurant. It's a service station themed restaurant. The applicants currently have operated a similar pizza service station themed restaurant in Stratford, and they've done that for approximately 4 years. With regard to this application at the 801 Post Road, what we have here is a non-conforming lot. It's a very unusual shaped lot, triangular in shape. For several years, and I should say many years going back, it's been a service station, actually pumping gas. In its later years, it was only for repairs, but it's always existed as a service station at this location. And as many of you probably know, this area is directly across the street from what is now known as What's Day, and also Sunny Days Ice Cream. So this is directly across the street from that location. The location is or has been in disrepair now for several years. And I think that's significant since this is the gateway to the center business district, that this corner area has been in disrepair and is very unsightly. And in fact, what this application does is it dramatically enhances this location, which is a very important location for the town of Fairfield. As I mentioned, it's the gateway to the center business district. The theme of this pizza restaurant is a service station themed restaurant. So as a result, the actual existing building will be kept. It's approximately 1,100 square feet. So that would not change. There's a small addition of approximately 400 feet to the east of the property, in which that addition has been approved with setbacks by the ZBA, and that was back in February of this year. The small addition of approximately 400 square feet will actually contain the kitchen area, or I should say include the kitchen area. The interior of the restaurant in the dining area is actually quite small. It's the seating area, the dining area is only 312 square feet. What the application also proposes is a side porch area, and that's side porch area is approximately 228 square feet, and a seasonal front patio area of only 150 square feet. So again, the actual interior dining area, as I've indicated, is quite small. And the front, the theme, again, being the service station themed restaurant, we've included photographs of the existing Stratford Pizza Co. location, has the garage doors, which are remain, and I see we're posting those pictures. If we could just scroll down so that the commission members could see them. Yep, if you could just scroll down a little bit. We'll get back up to that one. If you just scroll down a little bit more. There's the existing Pizza Co. Restaurant in Stratford. If you just scroll down again a little bit. Right there. And those are the garage door openings that in the Stratford location. Similarly, with regard to the Fairfield location, there would be the two garage doors. In better weather, they can open to the inside. And again, in the front of that would be the small seasonal patio, which is 150 square feet. If we could just scroll up, please. I'm sorry, if you just scroll down, there we go. And we'll just have a schematic right there. The schematic of the Fairfield location is depicted there in that photo, and that's the small slab area of approximately 150 square feet. Off to the right would be the patio area that I mentioned of approximately 228 square feet. Off to the left is the small addition. Now, with regard to this specific location, as we've indicated, it's triangular in shape. The actual use, it's a permitted use in terms of having a restaurant at this location. And with regard to this qualifying for the special permit, what we do on the special permit is solely examine whether the use of the property is or will be made in accordance to the zoning regulations. So that's the purpose of the special permit review. is whether the allowed use for this property would be within the zoning regulations of the town, which we submit they are. With regard to the parking, we've been before the Zoning Board of Appeals, as I've indicated back in February. They granted a variance allowing 10 parking spots, and we have, and that's the, we have a, should have a, the other diagram showing the 10 spots. That's the current diagram. If we could just scroll to the current diagram. Okay. That's not, that's the engineer's report, but do you have the architectural? Well, that's fine for now. So with, okay. All right, so with regard to the 10 spots, they are depicted in this diagram, and that is the what was approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals. I should note that even without the variance, the number of spots pursuant to the square footage would have been 13.5, but with the ZBA decision granting the variance for 10 spots, we're allowed the 10 spots as depicted in our application. And again, at the most, it would have been 13.5. So it's a small reduction in spots and parking spots with regard to the approval by the ZBA. They're at our previous application. Some of you were present at the last presentation of this back in May. Some of the members might not have been at that meeting, but with regard to any issues with regard to parking, they have certainly, and the issues with regard to parking and the situation of the width of the aisles and the swing outs that we've addressed with regard to the parking as we have now depicted it in this application. And in addition to the parking, we have 2 parking agreements which we have submitted as part of the record with adjoining property owners, which property owners would include the property specifically adjoining this property, which is 25 South Benson Road. And that's the property directly adjoining the triangular shaped property that you see in the diagram that's posted, depicting the spaces in the back. And then also with regard to 79 South Benson Road, there's also a parking agreement with regard to 79 South Benson Road, a parking agreement with the property owner there to use their parking spaces, which has over 36 parking, approximately 36 parking spaces there. So, and again, this is just as for mitigation purposes for parking. What we've been approved for is 10 spaces, which we have satisfied that regulation with regard to the application that we have submitted. It should be noted that the presentation of the actual use of the property pursuant to this application is really an enhancement from the historical use of this property. The historical use of this property has been intensive when it was a service center. Some of you may recall, some may not, but that there were service pumps at this property in addition to the repair of motor vehicles. The location of the motor vehicles on the property was very dense, covering most of the property. This use of the property, as we have depicted it in our application, is actually, as I've indicated, an enhancement of its previous use as a service center. The restaurant itself, most of the time it's a takeout type of restaurant, although as we've said that there is indoor seating, but a lot of the business is takeout. With regard also to the hours of operation, they don't serve breakfast. It's expected that it would open for lunch and in the evening, be open obviously in the evening. The Stratford locations closed one day during the week also. Again, the morning usage of the property would be non-existent since, as I've indicated, it's primarily an evening type of operation from their experience at the Stratford location. With regard to our previous application, there was some issues raised about seating and occupancy and the number of seats. I want to note that with regard to parking, the parking, as again, the commission members are aware, it depends on square footage of the dining area, but we have substantially reduced the seating inside, and we've reduced the seating inside by 26 seats with regard to our new proposal. But again, with regard to the regulations as they stand, we have satisfied the parking regulations as submitted in our application to the commission. With also with regard to the seating, I should mention that we've included in the seating with regard to that seasonal front porch, there is 8 seats, and again, as I've just indicated, that would be seasonal seating only in the front. But again, with regard to the substantial reduction in seating by 6, we've made a change to address concerns about the patrons that would be on the property. And again, that would be the most inside and outside at one particular time. So we've made a substantial reduction of those 26 seats. So with regard to the application that we have presented, I believe that we've addressed the concerns with regard that were raised the last time concerning the seating inside. With regard to the parking has certainly been addressed with regard to the maneuvering issue in terms of the angle of the spots that have now presented, and that is on the diagram posted right now.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
So I think I saw a recent email exchange with Ms. Pooley about the parking configuration, in which she said that certain spaces would have to be parked head in, tail in, so head out, right?
Right.
Right. Which spaces are those that she's referring to?
Those would be the first 2 as soon as you enter on the right there.
On the right. And so how do you, I guess that's because if you were backing out of that first spot right along the post road in the corner, it'd be difficult to see somebody sort of coming in to make a right-hand turn in, or right?
And I, and personally, I think that I would back into spots like that anyways, and there's plenty of room to do that, and that would only be the first 2 spots on the right-hand side.
Right. And how would that be enforced?
Well,
there's only 10 spots.
Right, as that's depicted at other locations, there would be signage, number 1, and also that could be printed on the ground of those first 2 spots. But there would be a signage with regard to those first 2 spots to backing in, which again I've seen in others parking locations.
Yeah, then it would seem to me that the parking spaces on the other side, on the angled spaces, and the other one, the perpendicular one, would seem to be head in only, right? I mean, you don't want people trying to back into any one of those spaces, do you?
Right. No, and I mean, again, they're angled as depicted in those photographs. Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So, right.
And that's and again, and the others, as soon as you enter, are not angled, and those are obviously angled. And I should say to the east of the building. Correct.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Thank you.
And what and again, with regard to the special permit, as I initially commented, what we're looking at is whether the application, or I should say the use, is in accordance with the regulations. And that's what we look at for purposes of approving a special permit. And with regard to what we have submitted, we do comply with the regulations for the special permit use. With regard to our use of the property, what was raised at the last time by Mr. Green, or Attorney Green, I just want to, before I believe that I'm anticipating he's going to make comments, he represents Bob's store, which is across the street from this location. And I just want to point out before he does make any comments that since we were last here, the appellate court has come down, I think, with a very important decision that the commission should know of and might be aware of. But in July, they came down with the decision of Boyajian, Boyajian versus Planning and Zoning Commission of the town of Vernon, that's cited at 206 Con App 118. That's from the Connecticut Appellate Court. And I mention that case because in that case, it addresses what was a lot of the discussion by Attorney Green at the last hearing, and that is that at this special permit stage, the commission, what they cannot do is go back and listen to a collateral attack on what the ZBA did in terms of granting variances in this matter. And in that case, the appellate court specifically said that there cannot be you cannot attack the validity of a variance at a commission hearing on a special permit application. And in that case, after a variance was granted to reduce a liquor establishment within 3,000 feet of another establishment at the special permit stage, when there was no appeal of the ZBA decision, the special permit was attempted to be attacked with regard to that issue. The appellate court made very clear that you cannot collaterally attack that issue at the special permit stage. So I just caution Commission at this stage that what we do at this stage in terms of approving a special permit, we cannot go back and have a collateral attack on the ZBA decision, which, by the way, Mr. Green's client, the Bob's store operator, never appealed from, and now they cannot at this stage try to collaterally attack the parking issue, which was granted at the ZBA stage. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. So I think I see we have a few questions. Mr. Wendt, you have something to add before we go to questions?
I just had a question, Mr. Chairman, if you could spell the plaintiff in that case you just referred to again. I'm sorry.
Sure. And the plaintiff was James, and the last name is B like in boy, O-Y-A-J-I-A-N, like in Nancy. And that's versus Planning and Zoning Commission of the town of Vernon.
Mr. Wendt, did you get this legal citation?
That's 206 Con App 118, and that was decided, the decision was released on July 20th, 2021.
Thank you. I just don't have a pen with me.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah, Commissioner Noonan.
Thank you. I haven't had a chance to look at that decision, but just a thought crossed my mind, and I wanted to see what your thought was on it. I understand the basic idea that you not collaterally attacking ZBA decision. But let's use an analogy. For example, frontage. ZBA gives a variance for frontage, which cannot be collateral. I understand not be collaterally attacked. But could we use the fact that the frontage in our determinations for, I think for special permit, that it's in harmony with the neighborhood? Are we allowed to say, well, we understand that you comply now because with frontage closer to the street than would otherwise be allowed because of a variance, but we find that it is not in harmony with the neighborhood nonetheless.
Right, and you're referencing a discretionary aspect of the commission, and there is that side of it also. But again, the non-discretionary part is whether it complies with the regulations, and specifically, I'm referencing in this particular case, and each case is going to vary. I understand that, but in this case, with regard to the parking, specifically with regard to that issue has been decided, and what has been decided is that we're allowed 10 parking spots, and we've complied with that regulation. But also, to raise the issue that you just did, we've mitigated any of those issues also. And we have, as I've indicated, the 2 parking agreements with adjoining properties owners for mitigation purposes. But with regard to the regulations, as approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals, we've complied.
Now, to the parking specifically, based on what Ms. Pooley had said, and I assume, I guess, your acquiescence to it, that with respect to the 2 parking spots that need to be backed into. Because Ms. Pooley is recommending it, and I assume you're accepting that recommendation, that needs to be done, I assume, in order to have proper parking on this lot, correct?
With regard to those first 2 spots, right? And I think it's more of a maneuvering on the first spot with regard to right-of-ways. So,
yeah, I mean, when I first read it, my initial thought was, I think I've seen these in the past. Obviously, very rarely, I think. I mean, I question how, if it's really, somebody's really going to even notice, number one, I mean, maybe the passage time will help, but notice it in order to do it. And probably won't notice it until they actually park head on and see the parking sign right in front of them. But my initial concern is that people are not going to abide by that. I'm not sure if there's anything, on your end that you're going, because I could see somebody coming in going towards Westport, taking a left onto the property and just pulling right into one of those 2 spots. That seems to be a pretty natural decision. And I just wonder what can be done to really enforce that if it's needed.
Right. Again, I mean, we would have signage, and we would have obviously people on the premises. I hate to speculate what people do sometimes, but we would certainly want them to back in to make it easy. And I think as a driver for many years, I think that it would be a lot easier to back in many times in certain spots. And I think
I can see looking at this. I can see looking at the picture that makes sense. I just.
And also,
people's natural is to pull in. I mean, that's mine. I could see easily people doing that. Aside from,
we would have signage. I'm sure you're familiar with the Sportsplex when that was approved, coming out on North Pine Creek Road. There was a requirement of signage, so when you were exiting and entering, how you could use that driveway on North Pine Creek Road. and that was resolved through signage as to whether you could take a left into the parking lot as you're driving south on North Pine Creek Road. Similarly, if
I think that's been used as an example in this commission several times for the opposite of what you. Well, I think I've seen people
right, but
do the exact opposite of what the signage says.
If you've been by there recently, I think if they replace the sign with one that's legible, it would be helpful. The one that's there now is almost completely faded. So, I mean, that's a two-edged sword. But again, I'm giving an example as a signage issue. We would certainly have signage and be able to easily enforce it since, you know, again, this is a small property with regard to the property subject to this application, and we could, we have employees there on the property too.
Yeah, I know. And I mean, the other part of it is enforcing it. Would you have somebody actually go out and say, no, you have to turn it around? And now we're actually adding an extra trip, so to speak, backing out, backing in just to leave again. I mean, it seems like once they're in, they're in.
Well, no, again, with regard to this, it's twofold resolution to this with regard to the signage and also with regard to, and again, it's a small property. We would be, the employees would be at the Stratford location. There's somebody always in the front by the cash in the front vestibule area, so we'd be able to monitor it very easily.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Any other questions for Attorney Bashino? Commissioner Braun.
I believe, okay, if there's not the...
Commissioner Braun.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, Attorney Boshanis.
How are you, Attorney Braun?
Good. The parking side agreements, I don't think we saw them the last time around, and I don't know if you addressed them at all. I had trouble hearing just now when you gave your presentation, but I have a couple questions. It looks as though you have a parking agreement for 25 South Benson, which is immediately adjacent, but not for 39, which is the Spear Funeral Home, which is the next place down. But then you have one for 79, which is 2 doors down or 3 doors down. How does that work, and who's using that? Is that going to be the people that work there, or
well,
how does, because I think there are fences. I don't think those lots are connected in the back. How does that work?
Sure. So and again, I addressed this in terms of mitigation purposes only. We've met the requirement of the 10 spots, but just to address those questions, the parking lot directly behind this property, adjacent, there is parking, which we have a parking agreement for. And that has direct access to our property.
Is that 745 Post Road, the one up the Post Road, or the one more, when you say behind, do you mean on the Post Road or on South Benson?
So South Benson,
South
Benson is directly behind the subject property.
So that's 25 South Benson.
Correct.
The one, okay.
And then there's a gate.
Right. And so there's direct access to the property from there.
Okay.
All right. And then our employees would not park there. They would park at 79 South Benson Road. And again, this is a small operation. There's approximately 5 employees, which depending upon the hours might even be less than that, particularly during the day. So they would be parking at 79 South Benson Road, which has, as I've indicated, available 36 spaces, which is more than the spaces that would have been available at the Spear Miller Funeral Home. So actually, this better serves the property. There's direct access to a sidewalk on the same side of the property, no crossing the streets involved here. So, and it has direct access to the subject property from that location.
This image is showing the parking lot behind that property, but you would proceed to the front of the building, walk along the sidewalk on South Benson, and then on our property, we have a sidewalk that brings you into the property. So there's readily.
You don't anticipate customers, it wouldn't be customers who would be parking on these other parcels, because I couldn't imagine a customer would walk that far, you know.
I'm glad that was raised, because we've submitted a walking diagram. And with regard to the walking diagram, the distance between the parking lot at 79 South Benson Road to the subject property is actually less than the distance at the furthest part at the CVS parking lot on the Post Road to the front door of the CVS. So the distance, believe it or not, would be less than what currently exists at commercial properties on the Post Road, as I've just, provided an example of the CVS. The furthest distance between the front door of the CVS property and the parking spot is approximately 800 feet.
And how would customers know that they could park behind these other buildings? Do you anticipate signage? I was looking at the agreements. It looks like anything would have to be approved by the landlord at 25 and 79.
Well, they've approved it, right? And we have signage.
Approved signage. If you wanted to put signage up, like park here if you're going to go to the pizza place.
Well, right, and we would have signage at Pizza Co. also, and also on the website about available parking.
Okay, thank you.
And which, again, at the ZBA, at the approval of the 10 spots, at the ZBA, they had mentioned that there were agreements with regard to 10 additional spots with adjoining property owner. We've exceeded that as because of the 79 South Benson Road, the spots, as I've indicated, number approximately 36. Yesterday, I went there just in anticipation of today's hearing during the middle of the day, and there were 7 cars parked in that back lot. So it's a very underutilized area, and that's why they've agreed in terms of using that lot.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else have any other questions for the applicant, Commissioner Brayman?
Thank you. Attorney Buchanan, I understand your argument that the variance allows you to have the parking that you have on site, and no more that the parking agreements provide mitigation, but the parking agreements are terminable in the discretion of the owners, right?
Right, which is not uncommon. Sometimes if they want to sell the property, that type of language put in. But we have very, very good, I'd like to confidently say, relationships with both owners of the property, and extremely well. I've been involved, and the applicants themselves have been involved with the property owners, and there's a very, very nice working relationship. In fact, they're looking forward to the improvement of that lot. They've mentioned how unsightly it's been and for how long it's been that way, and that they're happy it's not going to be another service station also. So I think they're looking forward to this improvement, and I think our relationship has been great with those 2 property owners. There wasn't even an issue. I'm happy to say it was just a great relationship with them.
Always good to hear, and I understand that representation, but there's nothing in the contract that limits their right to terminate the parking arrangement.
Correct, right, other than some type of advance notice, right, which is not uncommon.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think they're going anywhere soon from talking or speaking to both property owners. So.
Right. Okay. Anyone else have any further questions for the applicant here? Commissioner Francis.
To clarify about the parking signage, you're going to have permanent metal signs, the 2 spaces that require backing in, and that there will be parking at 25 and 79 Benson Road. Those will be permanently affixed to your building.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I think we've pretty much beat this one up here. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Buchanan.
Thank you.
Anything further before we go to public comment? very good. Okay. With that, then we'll turn now to the public comment portion of the hearing. Ms. Harrigan, do we have anyone signed up in the chat for this matter?
I don't see anybody signed up in the chat, so if we want to just wait a moment to see if
Sure.
folks reveal themselves.
Let me see. I'll ask if anybody wants to be heard here. Any members of the public wish to be heard?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Right.
I see. Attorney Green. Okay, very good. Why don't we start with you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, staff, good evening. My name is Joel Green. I practice law in Bridgeport with the law offices of Green and Gross. It's my pleasure to appear before you this evening on behalf of Post Benson Corporation, who owns and operates the Fairfield Shopping Center across the street from the proposed development. I'm going to have to juggle my presentation a little bit because there are a couple of issues that I just want to get up front at while they're still warm. First of all, I note that there were some new documents. There were some documents projected on the screen this evening that I haven't had the benefit of seeing yet. This is, I understand that the staff endeavors to get all matters up on the site, on the zoning commission site, and I have relied on that generally to look at applications.
Of course. What was shown on the screen today that's not in the record?
There were a couple of diagrams that seemed to show site turning and.
No. I mean, I reviewed the packets a number of times before tonight's meeting, and I was paying very good attention throughout the meeting. None of those drawings look to me to be anything other than what is in the record, the site plans and such. The aerial photographs and the like. What is it that you're referring to that you need that was a surprise to you this evening?
There were some. It was the aerial photographs are not part of the master packet that's on the website. As I saw.
How does this at all relevant to any type of comment that you have with respect to the merits of the application?
I don't know, but I'm just making the comment that there was a turning radius drawing that was not on.
I did not see a turning radius drawing.
Oh, I thought that I saw on the screen a aerial drawing that seemed to show turning radiuses on the site. Am I mistaken?
I believe so, Mr. Bochanis, and I never do this, but I'm going to ask you to please confirm whether you showed any documents on the screen tonight which were not in the packets.
I think during the scroll of the diagrams, they were all in the packet. I think there was a turning radius document I think he was referring to too, that my understanding was submitted also.
Okay, not that we viewed today, at least on the share screen. Mr. Wendt?
I can help if I may, Mr. Chairman. There were two. It was kind of, I don't know that they were. One was referenced was the there was an aerial photograph that showed the two parking agreement properties in the distance that folks might traverse. The second, although it wasn't referenced, I think it was scrolled through quickly. There was a supplemental drawing that was presented in response to Laura Pooley's original comment about maneuvering in the parking spaces, which led to a supplemental comment, an email of Monday that she's reviewed the latest plans. So it wasn't really referenced in this discussion. So there are two. There is a parking maneuvering diagram that was submitted in response to the engineering comments,
Right.
And then just the aerial that shows the juxtaposition of the parking agreements to the subject parcel.
Okay, so that was not a focus of any comments or discussion here this evening. I'm sorry, Mr. Green, Attorney Green, I don't understand where we're going with this.
I don't know whether it's part of the record or not. That's all. If it's part of the record, then we have the right to see it. And if it's not part of the record, then I'm fine.
Mr. Wendt, can you clarify whether that the material is part of the record?
To be fair, I do recall seeing something, because I've gone through the record quickly myself, that was colored or highlighted differently than I can, and I cannot seem to locate it in the links that in going back over the agenda with the links.
I understand, and it happens, and it does happen with frequency that participants will come in with highlighted examples of their documents and so forth. Mr. Wendt, are the documents that you're talking about part of the public record?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Well, then I'm going to ask on behalf of my client that the hearing be held open so that we can see them and look at them and assess them.
They've been a matter of the public hearing according to the rules. You've had that opportunity.
Well, that's fine. If that's your ruling, I accept it. That's fine. Then I'll move on. But I take issue with it, but I've made my point.
To what end? To what end do you take issue with it? It's part of the record. You've had the opportunity to review it.
Well, I did not have the opportunity to review it. I relied on the application as it was presented online, and it was not in that document online. So look, I understand that this is going to happen in the world we live in right now, where we're sort of half real world, half virtual world, and I get it. But if the files are going to be put on the internet and represented as being the application and the master application, and staff has been very good about putting supplemental materials up, but this was not put up. And I'm just saying that my client's at a disadvantage. I can't show that to our engineer. I can't, in the course of this hearing. And so I'm just raising that. I'm happy to go on with my presentation, but I'm just saying that I don't think it's fair to have documents in the record that have not been accessible to the public. That's all. But I can go on and continue with my presentation, and I leave it up to the commission to do as you see fit.
Very good.
On the Boyajian case, Attorney Bochanis raises that issue, and what that case stands for really is that I cannot ask this commission to deny the application based upon my claim that the Zoning Board of Appeals acted improperly. That cannot form the basis for a denial of the special permit. And certainly my client and I are not asking the commission to deny this for that reason. However, we did point out, and we will point out again this evening, that the variances, in our opinion, were obtained under false pretenses. And we will have an opportunity to raise that at another time. And I do disagree with Attorney Bochanis that we cannot attack that. We believe that we can, and we will at the appropriate time. However, just to put a point on that, what happened was the applicant appeared before the Zoning Board of Appeals and represented, just as it did this evening, that it has shared parking arrangements with neighboring properties. And the Zoning Board of Appeals relied upon that in granting the variances, including in particular the waiver of the parking requirement. The fact of the matter is that shared parking arrangements are not allowed in the design commercial district. Attorney Bochanis is now, the applicant is offering that it's going to have parking at 25 South Benson Road and 79 South Benson Road. That's the first time I've heard of that this evening at this hearing. The commission asked some very good questions because presumably the uses of those two properties involve special permits. There are parking requirements for those businesses. And in addition to the fact that 28.9A under joint usage requires that all properties be located within the center design business district or design industrial district for joint parking arrangements, which this property is not. It's not clear to me that as a matter of capacity, based on the special permits that those properties have, that they have the capacity to offer up spaces. I think that this commission would want to know on any project whether there is a formal arrangement, whether rent, for example, is being collected by those properties to allow parking. And really, your regulations require that there be adequate off-street parking for uses on this site, except where there is a joint parking arrangement, which once again cannot exist in this zone. So I would ask the commission, while I'm not asking the commission to deny this based on what happened at ZBA, I am similarly asking the commission to not factor in the fact that this applicant is claiming that its employees, and I think I heard that it's going to post signs saying that it's okay to park on neighboring properties as a means of satisfying the findings that this commission must make in granting a special permit.
No, I think just to correct that record, I think the mention was that there would be signs posted in the other lot saying that there was parking was available for the pizza place in that location. And on their lot to say additional parking at 79, you know, and with the address. I mean, to direct people to the appropriate place.
Well, let's let the chaos ensue in the town of Fairfield as everyone will enter into private parking arrangements to deal with their excess capacity. And I would urge the commission not to take that into account here.
That's fine. But I mean, there are shared parking arrangements in many places around town.
Admittedly. So what's the problem here? The problem is this development, and this application, by the way, is substantially similar with some minor tweaks to the application that was before it. I would ask the commission to incorporate the record of the last proceeding, or I can go through all of the exhibits and all of my remarks from the last hearing as well, if the commission would like. But it seems to me that the applicant has made several references to the record, and it seems to me we should incorporate the record of the other proceeding, and I can be pretty short here. So it's too intensive development for this site. This is undeniably a high traffic area. My client already has problems with patrons of its tenants getting in and out of that site. We are all familiar with the traffic on South Benson Road. We are all familiar with that intersection, which is perhaps one of the busiest intersections in the town of Fairfield. There is no street parking on the Post Road in the vicinity of this property. There is no street parking on South Benson Road in the vicinity of this property. There is no street parking on North Benson Road. At best, there is very limited parking on Elliott Street, which is over 400 feet away to any sort of parking. And I've been through there a number of times recently looking at another application. And interestingly, I note that Elliott Street, the limited parking it has is already heavily used by the businesses that are on Elliott Street. So the applicant here is proposing a restaurant with 50 seats, 5-step. Uber Eats services their restaurant in Stratford. Grubhub services their restaurant in Stratford. The applicant stated tonight, much of their business is takeout. There's the matter of purveyors dropping off supplies. There's the matter of trash haulers. What could possibly go wrong? There is no traffic study that the applicant has offered here. So you can't, this commission cannot even make the findings it has to make under the regulations. And this has all the makings of a disaster. And my client is justifiably concerned about the impact on its center, where it has adequate parking. It works hard to maintain adequate parking and to maintain a neat and orderly lot for its tenants. And this is just going to be a problem. If this business is at all successful, it's going to be a problem. The applicant stated that, I'm just going to move right ahead here. First of all, the parking that the applicant has is not compliant with your zoning regulations. I have a, if I can get screen sharing. Bear with me for one moment. I don't know if you're able to see this.
We are.
I did submit it into the record. This is the site plan, and there are some notations that were prepared by Steve Trinkus today of Trinkus Engineering. You'll note that the space number 7, for example, is at an angle of 65 degrees. The width of the aisle there is 15.5 feet under your zoning regulations, 28.11.2.5. A one-way aisle with 60-degree angle parking. This is 65, so it exceeds that. Parking, angle parking, the aisle shall be no less than 18 feet in width. This is only 15.5 feet in width. So they cannot satisfy the width requirements for parking. We believe, and unfortunately I don't have a calculation, but as I looked at it tonight, Attorney Bochanis made an interesting comment. He referred to dining area for the parking floor area. You just stop the share here. And it is in fact patron floor area, and I would urge the commission to have engineering measure the patron floor area on this, because something he said had me look and compare the size of the drawings. I think that the applicant grossly understates the actual patron floor area for the site. I don't have a calculation for you this evening. I would also submit that this is not a zoning compliant use. Under the zoning regulations for the design commercial district, and I have that here, just bear with me for a moment. There are 3 categories of restaurants under the regulations that are permitted in this zone. There is first 12.4.15, which refers to restaurant and food service and includes non-table service restaurants and catering. That is, this application does not come under that category. This is a restaurant with table service. And 12.4.16 refers to drive-through restaurants. That's subject of the Chick-fil-A application. That provides stacking and has a takeout window and that sort of thing. This comes under 12.4.17, which refers, that's 12.4.17, which refers to restaurants and other food service establishments where customers are served only when seated at tables or counters, and at least 3/4 of the customer seats are located within an enclosed building. Such uses may include food takeout service incidental to the primary permitted use, but shall not include establishments where customers are served in motor vehicles. In this case, the applicant proposes seating for 50. 20 of those seats are outdoors, therefore only 60% of the customer seats are located within the building. Therefore, this application does not come within the regulation, within the definition of regulation in the zone. Therefore, it is not a zoning compliant use, as Attorney Bochanis claimed when saying that it fully complies with the zoning regulations, because it simply doesn't. You'll just bear with me for a moment. I think it's just fair to say that, and I don't think this is, I know this is not lost on the commission. This application, it is just too intense a use. The parking arrangement is tortured, and it is a tortured arrangement in terms of the use of this site. It is simply inadequate for the use. The geometry, the parking spaces is terrible. I would also submit that the way the applicant has it laid out with two parallel spaces being spaces 1 and 2, under our regulations, a fair reading would justify that the application, that the aisles need to be wider, because this is not simply one side with inline parking. It presents parking on both sides of that aisle, and it's simply not going to work. There's another issue that I wanted to bring to the commission's attention. Just bear with me, if you would, for a moment. I can just going to call up the site plan for a moment. I have not seen the drawing of the I didn't see this wheel. I didn't see the maneuvering drawing. So I don't understand how the parking is going to work. Apparently there is a document out there, but I cannot address it, but we've covered that. But ordinarily, particularly, this is kind of a high risk application, because once again, it is at a highly taxed, highly used intersection. And I just would suggest that this commission would ordinarily, under all circumstances, would require some sort of traffic study to show, to at least create some basis upon which this commission can find that this satisfies the standard set forth in, for example, 25.7.7, which provides, among other things, that the development will avoid undue traffic congestion. The applicant has offered you nothing on that. You simply can't find it. And once again, this is one of the most challenging intersections in town. And I have not seen an application. I can't recall, honestly, an application involving a site in a commercial area with this intense a use and this intense a traffic situation where there has not been a traffic study produced. And I think that this commission really cannot grant this application in the fair exercise of the jurisdiction you have in making the findings that you must make under section 25.7. And I would also call the commission's attention to section 25.7.5, which provides that the lot is of sufficient size and shape to permit the use of the buildings or other structures and facilities in such a manner that will not be detrimental to the neighborhood or adjacent property. And I don't believe that the applicant has provided that, met that burden, and the commission certainly cannot make that finding. I think that it was an excellent question to ask what this, once again, this arrangement is with neighboring properties. I saw a drawing that seemed to show some sort of pedestrian path that, once again, I have not seen, so I don't know what that shows. This commission, as you had asked of the applicant, doesn't know whether these license agreements are revocable. Once again, as I indicated earlier, I don't think that a special permit user can suddenly engage in the business of letting other businesses use their property without adjusting their special permit or having some form of review. And with that, I guess I don't think I have anything else to offer, and I want to thank the commission for your generous patience and your attention. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
I appreciate that. Thanks for your comments. I see Commissioner Braun.
I'd like to clarify what documents were included in this record versus the old record from the May hearing on the prior application. I don't see an aerial photo in mine, but in the new one, but I see one in the old one. Is that what Attorney Green is referring to? There's an aerial photo with like an orange triangle over it, but that's in the old master set of plans. There is no aerial that I could find in the new materials we got that was, that was linked in the agenda. The only other thing I got other than what was linked in the agenda for the new application is 2 parking agreements with no pictures or plans attached. That's all I have. Maybe.
So that's what's in the record. This is new application. This record consists of the filings that were made in this application, and the record, the public hearing record, is what is happening here this evening. We've not incorporated the prior filings. We're not incorporating the prior arguments and authority even that was in the prior application. Okay. This is a new application. If there are documents that are missing from the record, then that's the applicant's responsibility. If there are issues with that, then people can take issue with that. But I mean,
I'm trying to make sure I understand what's in there. Did Attorney Boshanis present an aerial photo? Because I don't remember seeing one during the hearing tonight, unless it was from the old application. Maybe I was looking somewhere else.
Mr. Chairman, may I just briefly?
Sure, Attorney Green.
There are 19 pages in the master document that is on the commission website. There are 19 pages that comprise the application as far as I'm concerned. The applicant showed some sort of pedestrian travel plan. The applicant showed some sort of aerial plan. The applicant showed, and I guess we've clarified on this turning radius plan, but there are 19 pages on the zoning commission website. That's all I wanted to say.
So can we have those sent to us? Because I don't think I have copies of a pedestrian or an aerial from this new application. I don't think I got an email for that. Maybe we did, but I didn't see it. I don't think I got one.
We can provide that along with the, apparently there was a drawing that I haven't seen yet either that was submitted after I left today that was shown by Mr. Green. So those 3 sheets we can certainly forward to you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Listen, the parking agreements were circulated by email Monday, September 13th at 4 p.m.
I haven't seen them.
Any other questions, Commissioner Braun?
So my objection is noted, Mr. Chairman, anyway. That's it.
No, just so I can get copies of whatever was presented tonight. I did get the parking agreements, but I didn't get anything else with an aerial or a pedestrian schematic.
We can provide that along with the drawing that Attorney Green referenced as well.
Thank you.
Commissioner Francis?
Is the porch going to have a roof?
So, Commissioner Francis, we're in the public comment right now. Attorney Green is at the podium, if you will. And I don't know, is that a question for Attorney Green?
Nope.
Any other members of the commission have any questions or comments for Attorney Green? I don't see any, and I'm not hearing anyone. Any other members of the public? Attorney Green, that's, I think, no one else has any further follow-up questions for you.
So, Mr. Chairman, is it your position that you are unwilling to incorporate the record of the previous application?
Yeah, I don't understand the benefit of that, to be honest with you.
There's opposition.
This is a new application. There was opposition made to the earlier application, and that application was withdrawn.
Well, this is substantially the same application with a minor adjustment. There were letters from Old Post Road Area Association in opposition. There were letters from others in opposition. There are documents we submitted.
I don't understand why, if there was continued opposition to a new application, that those wouldn't have been submitted again.
I can.
The public hearing is about to close. It's 9:45. I mean, you know, I don't understand.
Well, I didn't, and I just heard that there are also these letter agreements are apparently in the record, and they were not on the website, and I just don't think it's fair. But
So let me go through the rest of public comment, and then I'll have some questions for Mr. Bochanis in rebuttal, and we can see if perhaps we can resolve some of these issues.
thank you. And Mr. Chairman, once again, I greatly appreciate your patience, and I understand. I'm just doing my best to make a record for my client, and I appreciate.
Sure, you can understand the frustration, because you've been on the other side of each and every one of these points numerous times.
I have, and I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so any other questions for Attorney Green? I'm going to move on. All right. Any other members of the public wish to be heard on this?
I don't see anyone has indicated a desire to speak in the chat. I guess we can just give it a moment.
Yeah, I think we ought to. I don't know, looking at the list of participants, whether there are any folks who are in the meeting who. So now is the time to voice your opinion on this application, and I am calling it going once, going twice, 3 times. So, hearing no one and not seeing anyone sign in the chat, presuming that there are no other members of the public that wish to be heard on this. So we'll close the public comment portion, and we'll go over to rebuttal. Mr. Bochanis, Attorney Bochanis. Attorney Green has raised a couple of procedural issues with respect to documents that were submitted late, namely the parking sharing arrangement agreements, which were circulated to the commission yesterday, but apparently didn't make it to the website. A couple of exhibits which you filed in the record, but didn't make it into the record, onto the website, including the attorney's radius document. And also requested to incorporate the prior application record, presumably all the filings as well as the public hearing, into this record. Can you give me a sense of how your position with respect to that? And I could offer up one potential solution, which would be to continue the public hearing, allow Attorney Green to review the materials, and we would take this up at the next meeting. Whether you are amenable to that, I'm not necessarily foreclosed to that.
Right. With regard to the the documents, I think they could be taken up at this meeting with regard to, I think it was what we saw an aerial photograph, which was submitted, I believe, yesterday or the day before. Well, yesterday, I believe yesterday, I should say. It was an aerial photograph, I think. It's just an aerial photograph showing the adjoining properties. With regard to I think you had mentioned shared parking agreements.
Right. The parking agreements that were circulated yesterday by email at 4 p.m. apparently did not make it to the website, and Mr. Green has raised an objection with respect to those, and has requested an opportunity to review those materials that were not posted to the website. Now, you have the ability to consent to that request and provide all of the documents, and we'll hold the hearing open and we can continue the matter, and that will obviously moot any objection that his client might have to, those materials. You could also take the position that, that's not appropriate, and that, you file the materials, and, in any event, they're not relevant to any objection you might have to the application on the merits. I'm just wondering whether you consent to that.
Well, I don't know if I could consent to keeping this open. I don't think it's relevant with regard to the 10 spots that that this property is approved for, and an aerial photograph of the property is common knowledge. I mean, with regard to the 2 adjoining properties, I mean, just showing an aerial photograph of 2 adjoining properties. So
very good, very good. I understand your position. What about incorporating the record of the prior application?
Well, I don't see the purpose of that either. That was withdrawn. A new application was filed. I don't know what the purpose of the using the old file was. I mean, we've resubmitted with the changes with regard to seating and the parking. So I don't know what the benefit of that would be here. There was a reference to prior oppositions in writing. There were no prior oppositions. The only opposition was Attorney Green speaking on behalf of his client. That was the only opposition. In fact, there was letters of support that were submitted at the other hearing, not in opposition.
Fine. It not being part of the record here, I don't think we need to belabor what was contained therein. Okay. And if you don't want to consent to incorporating that prior record, the record from the prior application into this application, then so be it. And I like I said, I don't have a problem with that. Okay. So that all having been said, please, Mr. Bochanis, any further
sure
rebuttal arguments, or anything you'd like to add to the record?
Sure. Starting off, and where Mr. Green started off, he raised issue about a shared parking agreement, and again, not consenting that's a requirement, because as I've said before, with the ZBA approval, we've satisfied that. But just addressing that, and I think it needs to be addressed point blank. And we have to understand the context as to how that is coming before the commission. Mr. Green has complained that about shared parking agreements. What he doesn't indicate, and this was raised the last time before the commission, but I'll reiterate now, and what we all know is that Mr. Green's client has a shared parking agreement with the Miller Funeral Home. He has a shared parking agreement. He receives approximately $8,000 a year. That's Mr. Green's client for that shared parking agreement. There was a previous shared parking agreement with the Miller Funeral Home. Mr. Green's client contacted.
Let me interrupt. Are these agreements important or not? Because it's 9:50, and now we're talking about these somebody else's agreements.
Okay,
with
well,
somebody
I'm just,
else. I mean, just
sure.
tell me, because if it is, then I'm going to ask that this be kept open, because it doesn't
None
appear
of
that
that's part of the record. None of that's in the record, and all you're doing is creating attorney argument with hearsay.
I just don't. Either they're part of the record and they're important, or they're not.
Well, what I'm just indicating is that Mr. Green's client has a shared parking agreement.
But then you're saying that this is important.
Well, no, I'm just addressing, this is rebuttal as to his argument about how there shouldn't be shared parking agreements in town.
You're falling into
No,
his
but there's
trap.
no evidence of that.
Okay.
I mean, you're just falling into his trap and saying that's important.
Okay.
I don't really.
It's just a rebuttal to his claim about the shared parking.
You're opening a door that you don't want it open.
Okay. With regard to the deliveries to the property, rubbish removal, that would all be done prior to the opening of business. So that would not impact the issue about parking. So that takes place in Stratford also, where we do not have the deliveries being done during business hours. They are never done during business hours. Same thing with any rubbish removal. They would not be done within the business hours. With regard to the parking, I haven't had an opportunity to review what Mr. Green suddenly put up on the screen tonight, but we have submitted it to engineering, and their engineering did not make comment about what Mr. Green was indicating was not compliant. The issues that were raised were with the 2 parking spots that exist when you first enter, which I believe we've already addressed.
Attorney Bocanis, one
Yes.
thing that we need to address, because we haven't really addressed, one of the findings that we need to make is that this will not create undue traffic congestion. What evidence have you placed before us that allow us to do that?
Well, again, there wasn't a traffic study requested. The only issue raised about traffic is Mr. Green.
No, the regulations say that I need to make a finding that this will not make undue traffic congestion.
Right.
What
And,
evidence do I have to make that finding?
okay. And I think how we've addressed that is there is the elimination. This was raised by Mr. Green about the traffic on South Benson Road. We've eliminated the curb cut there, that there would be no traffic entering through the South Benson Road area, which exists, which is there now. We've addressed it by indicating that this is a type of business that is not open at the same hours as the intensive use of the service center was in the previous use of the property as a service station and a filling station, that with regard to the hours of operation, that it would be less intensive than what previously existed at the area, in addition to removing the entranceway, which was raised by Mr. Green with regard to, which is the only issue raised by an adjoining property owner about traffic, and that is that the turn-in on the South Benson Road would not exist at that location. And again, what we have also and what we've addressed is the fact that in terms of the floor area is only 300, approximately a little over 300 square feet. So again, this is a small operation. I think that we've addressed this issue about traffic in the ways that I've mentioned with regard to the curb cut, the hours of operation in the previous historical use of this property, which was much more intensive than what we.
Well, I mean, the recent history of the property is that it's not been used. Well, you said that your business, what was it, 2/3, 3/4 is takeout?
It's approximately, I would say half. I would say it depends on what time of the operation, but about half. During COVID, it's at least half. And with regard to the traffic, again, it would be one-way. Previous operation at this location, it was not restricted to a one-way direction. I think that mitigates any concerns about traffic here. There was a cut on South Benson, in addition to 2 cuts on the Post Road without any directional signage that previously existed. And again, that was a very intensive use of this property compared to what has been proposed here.
So, thank you for that. In turn, Commissioner Noonan, I don't mean to cut you off. We are coming up on a couple of minutes here before our curfew. And I would very much like to complete this hearing this evening so that we can close the hearing and get this in the books. Any other questions on that, Commissioner Noonan? I think we got the answer.
Thank you. All set. Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Bochanis, briefly, how do you respond to Attorney Green's argument about the division of indoor and outdoor dining with respect to number of seats and the regulation?
Well, I think I probably take issue with his quick recitation of those calculations. I believe that we have satisfied the regulations with regard to the seating as we've indicated. And again, with regard to the regulations as to restaurants, I think it is in compliance with the square footage and not the chairs that he's referring to in terms of how it complies with the zoning regs in terms of coming to compliance with a restaurant.
Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. Any other commissioners have any questions? And Mr. Attorney Bochanis, I don't mean to cut you off. If you have more that you would like to argue and go about, and you please let me know. But I don't want to delay this unnecessarily.
Sure. No, I do not have anything.
Okay. Any other commissioners have any other questions for Attorney Bochanis? Commissioner Francis.
Is the traffic going to be allowed to go both left and right onto the Post Road, or just right?
With regard to exiting, is that correct?
Yeah.
That would be just to the right.
Right turn only?
Right. Yes, I should say, yes.
Correct. Right turn only. Yeah. Okay.
I think that would ease the traffic through. Again,
Eliminating the an entrance on the Benson Road side. I suppose, yeah, that ruins your parking, right? Your number of parking spaces, because it certainly would be easier for a lot of people to come in from Benson.
Well, I don't
have to wait at the light, turn right, but it cuts your parking.
Well, I think it's more significant for interfering with traffic. So if you are traveling south on South Benson Road, we certainly don't want you taking a left into the property, because as you're probably aware, that traffic lines up for that traffic light if you're traveling south on South Benson Road. So I think this is a much better flow.
If you're traveling north, no, you're right, certainly not south.
Right. The traffic will stack at the light heading north.
Right.
And if you're seeking to make a turn into the business going south on South Benson, you might be sitting there and then back up onto the Post Road or above, right. So that seems to be.
And I should say the town required that, and we've certainly.
The town required that, yeah. Very good. Any other commissioners have any other questions? Okay.
Also, are there any long-term plans to close in the porch, or is it just going to be seasonal dining, April to October?
Oh, I'm sorry if I didn't understand that. What was the question?
Porch. On Benson roadside.
Right, in terms of it being seasonal.
Yeah, our
Is that what-
seasonal is May 1, April 1, it's to October 31st.
Right, and I think that's pursuant to the ZBA, that's what the decision was. For the approval of that, that's,
What did they
that was, yeah, and it's specifically indicated that in the record of the ZBA decision about the seasonal.
Okay.
So there are no long-term plans to close it in.
No, that's correct. And that's, and again, at the Stratford location, there's the front location, it's been 4 years and it's remained that way.
Okay. Very good. We are at our curfew, and I think we have exhausted all of the inquiries here. So with that, I think I will close the public hearing on this item, and I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.